Education meeting for November 13th, 2023. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Cerrone?
Here.
Mr. Gatewood?
Present.
Ms. Johnson? Ms. Johnson?
Present.
Dr. Murillo?
Present.
Mr. Ploger?
Present.
Ms. Simonton?
Present.
Ms. Medless?
Present.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Yes.
All right, so good evening, everybody. We want to welcome everyone tonight. We are honored to have special guests. We have our Pride Recognition Award, and I'm going to invite our Executive Director of Communications, Teresa Comitas, to guide us through the next process and invite the board to join in the front.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, the Board of Education acknowledges our Pride winners for the month of November. Pride stands for proudly recognizing individuals demonstrating excellence. The Board of Education implemented this program in the fall of 2015 to recognize, promote, and celebrate the many contributions made by teachers and employees across our district. We'd like to thank our generous district partners, Allied First Bank, Chick-fil-A, Huntington Learning Center, and Culver's for helping us make this program a success. We would also like to thank all of those who have nominated individuals this month. Awardees this evening, as your name is called and we share your nomination, please come forward to be congratulated by the board and Dr. Calgatti. We'll start with congratulating our Teachers of the Month for November. The first is Joe Franta from Oswego High School. Here's what someone shared about Joe. His nominator said Joe is passionate about helping students prepare for a successful future. He never stops thinking and is determined to create opportunities for students and families by sharing resources and leading students and families to opportunities to empower them in pursuing their educational journey. He has spent hundreds of hours creating, planning, executing, and fundraising events that impact our students, families, staff, and our community. Joe never stops thinking about how he can make a difference in motivating our students. He could have written the definition on transition planning, a set of coordinated activities that help students with disabilities with an outcome-oriented process that promotes movement from school to post-secondary success. He orchestrated, planned, and executed many successful hands-on learning experiences. Joe supports his colleagues by not only helping his own students, but all students. He's an innovator, educator that goes above and beyond to equip students with knowledge of technology. He connects with students and is able to adapt his teaching to the level of all students in his class. Always willing to collaborate with colleagues to promote a team atmosphere with the end result being what is very best for students. Thank you, Joe, for your 308 Pride. Next, we welcome up Matt Hotuyik from Old Post Elementary School. Matt's nominator said he is constantly going the extra mile to connect with his students and make their experience better. He has a curriculum full of fun and creativity to promote lifelong fitness. Matt runs a before-school program, provides a safe environment for students in his school to use when needing a positive break, participates on behavior management teams at Old Post, and provides a check-in system for at-risk students to come at the end of the school day to help him with small tasks. When provided with an approved grant for a rock wall in the gym at Old Post, he offered to use 2 full days of his weekend to construct the rock wall himself in order to save money on the project for the Home and School Association. Thank you so much, Matt, for your 308 Pride. Our last November Teacher of the Month is Saul Olivis from Hunt Club. Unfortunately, he's not able to be here this evening, but we do believe he's watching online, so we're going to share a little bit about him. There's not enough room to write about all the amazing things Saul goes above and beyond to support his students and the school community. He's the educator that we all want to be. It is evident from the moment the bell rings in the morning to way past when the sun goes down. Students seek Saul out to say hello, whether they have ever had him as a teacher or not. He does all the extra things to help his students understand the world around him, from being culturally inclusive with instructional materials and environmental accents to pen pals, adopted cows, and virtual field trips. Saul works hard to expose his students to the world and give them experiences to help them make real connections. He participated in our school-wide fundraising effort, collecting donations and running laps alongside the kids. His students achieve at a very high level, and he makes new connections with families. He has a great turnout for conferences and helps families be invested in their students' education. He implemented Tie Tuesdays at Hunt Club, where many staff and students dress for success and talk about the importance of being their best selves. We're going to pause for a photo here. If everybody could kind of come together. If there's any administrators here this evening from the schools, we welcome you forward for a photo. Got one coming behind you, Cindy. Time out, time out. I don't know. Jadon's calling for time out.
I was like, Mike, I think you're supposed to
Okay.
be in the picture.
Get in there, Mike.
Okay, admins jump in. Thank you. Congratulations, teachers. Next, we're going to award our amazing support staff winners. Awardees, after your name is called, please come forward so you can be congratulated by the board and Dr. Kalgati. Our November support staff of the month. Our first winner is Zabiha Zaid from Murphy Junior High School. Zabiha is a positive addition to my classroom and Murphy in general, says her nominator. She takes her role as a teacher's assistant very seriously and is always willing to do whatever is asked of her. She takes an interest in her students and enjoys talking to them and getting to know them. She is kind, caring, and a safe adult for students. She is patient and understanding when a student is struggling and becomes their biggest cheerleader when the light bulb goes off. She encourages students to never give up and tells them they can accomplish anything that they put their mind to. I'd be lost without the support she provides to my students and to me as well. Thank you for your 308 pride and congratulations. We welcome up Margie Hartigan from Oswego East High School. Her nominator says, Margie Hartigan is a ray of sunlight that warms everyone around her. When I think of what makes Oswego East such a great school, she is the embodiment of all great things OEHS is. She knows how to connect with students and goes to great lengths to make those connections. She's always supportive and easy to talk to. She listens. Students trust her and know that she's always looking out for their best interests. She knows when to push and when to encourage and when to just listen and be there for them. Her impact extends beyond students to her relationships with the entire staff. She is a pillar to the special education department as she goes above and beyond to help us build morale. From organizing food days to creating theme days to making sure everyone's birthday is acknowledged and celebrated, she finds the time to let people know they matter. She knows how to bring out the better versions of ourselves. I would love to see her earn this award as she is the epitome of what community is and means. She supports us all so much, and I want to show her how much we appreciate it. Thank you for your 308 pride. And last but not least, our final awardee this evening, Kate Dempsey from Hunt Club. Kate's nominator says, she always goes above and beyond to help every single student and staff member in our building. She is always ready to support students and meet them where they're at. She is flexible, patient, reliable, and adapts at any given moment. She gives up her own lunch and break often to ensure all students are getting what they need. Movement breaks, answering radio calls, filtering to the right person, subbing anywhere that's needed, providing lots of positive praise and modeling, giving reward breaks, staying late when needed to ensure car rider dismissal runs smoothly, and so much more. Kate has built great rapport with students, and they all love her. She is such a huge support to everyone in our building, and we thank you, Kate. Congratulations. Okay, if we could get together for a photo. And then we will invite our administrators to come up and join us for a second photo here. Congratulations to all of our winners. We invite everyone to visit our website for the next nomination period and appreciate everyone that takes time to nominate our amazing staff.
Oh, yeah, it was over there. We thought you did it on purpose.
Okay. So, building on this tradition of gratitude and celebration, this coming Wednesday is Board Member Appreciation Day. Woo! This year's theme was developed by the Illinois Association of Boards, which is Learn Together, Lead Together. I've got to say, personally, I have noted that this is a board committed to its own continuous improvement. Even on my first day on the job, they were in a retreat, and we've already had 3 retreats really this year already as a board over the last 3 months. So really that commitment to learning together is so evident. Our board members act as frontline advocates, providing a local voice for the community, a vision for the district, and a pathway to success for our students. They spend multiple hours each month on district work, attending meetings and other responsibilities most will never hear or read about. This is time they could spend with their families and or for themselves. I want to personally thank all 7 board members of the SD308 Board of Education for their selfless volunteer service to the district and our students. On behalf of our entire community, we appreciate you, and we thank you for your service.
I'm not trying to steal thunder, but the even more important thing on Wednesday is our Educational Support Personnel Day as
Yes,
well. It's
yes.
also Wednesday, and so as one board member, thank you.
Speaking of
finish your point.
educational support
Okay.
personnel, they would also
I'm
like
not following the cues, I apologize.
they would also like to celebrate our board. So I have a message from each union and each union presidents. This is from Lynn Waite and Nikki Rifkin. On behalf of the OESPA, we appreciate your dedication to the community, the students, and the SD308 staff. We are grateful for all of your leadership and support, and above all, for listening to us in times of need. We know your hard work and commitment often goes unnoticed, and we just want to say thank you. Thank you for your loyalty, thank you for your service, and thank you for all the concentrated efforts to make this a great place to live, work, and send our children to school. That is from OESPA.
Next one.
I want to share from D Nurse and the OTA group. The OTA wishes to express our sincere gratitude to the SD308 Board of Education for their visionary leadership and dedication to the students and staff of our district. On behalf of our entire membership, on this special occasion of the Board Member Appreciation Day, we say thanks. Thank you to the board members who volunteer their time and talents, listening and learning, helping to lead our district forward in productive and inclusive ways. That is from OTA. From our Oswego Education Association, Presidents Faith and Andrew, they would like to say thank you to the Board of Education for all they do for our schools and community. The Board of Education has shown their dedications towards creating and growing a high-quality school district that recognizes the hard work and commitment of teachers. We appreciate you all. And finally, from Garen Brown, OCMA President, I would like to thank the board members for their continuing partnership with the OCMA. We have always had an open and welcoming dialogue with board members. As we move forward, we are excited to not only continue this, but grow in partnership with this board. From OCMA.
When the call went out from Dr. Zwemke to our unions to participate, they were thrilled to have this opportunity. And so really, I know that this is an effort of love and sacrifice and not one where you are seeking, but it is worth and annually important to take note of the impact you are having on this community, and we thank you.
We appreciate.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
We also wanted to say thank you. So we left each one of you a note. I know some of you have opened them, but that is from me and Isabel, just saying thank you for all you do, and thank you for providing student voice and being a supporter of that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. All of these words of encouragement are so appreciated. We feel so loved and valued. So thank you so much to the community, to our SD308 community, for all the kind words. Okay, so there's no public comment, so we will be moving on. So it's going to be you next, Dr. Kim.
So tonight, you will have a chance to hear from our student coalition, and we are looking forward to hearing their voices. And also, I'm just so honored to be a part of a community that recognizes the staff and takes moments to honor them. Recently, we held a board retreat to review my first 90 days with the district, and also to begin to plan to prioritize for the remainder of this year and beyond. From the data collected, from listening to the voices of our community, our staff, our students, our families, and community members, to plan and to think ahead about what aligns with our values and the 4 goals that have emerged. Am I off the agenda?
Student presentation is first.
So,
Is point 1.
These are public comments, okay.
6.1.
All right, we're gonna mix it up for a minute.
We're going to mix it up back to the agenda.
For the teachers in the room, we're gonna use practice flexibility. And even more important, we're gonna bring up our coalition group to present. And we are so thrilled to have you. And Dr. Waller, are you here in the room? Of course you are. Come on up with your team. Yes. I know.
I did.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
So recently, I will preface this by saying that recently the board has decided and is to really start to introduce various groups to come, student groups, to have an opportunity to speak to the board. Last month, we were welcomed by Bionic, and we welcomed Bionic to the board. And this month, we are thrilled to have Coalition speak to us, the Student Coalition. And we thank you and your leadership for being here tonight.
Thank you. We're grateful to be here and the leadership of Dr. Waller. This is our part of our student coalition. They're going to introduce themselves and their dreams and goals.
Hi, I'm Jakai Hudson, and you said dreams and goals? Oh.
Yeah, it is. Jakai Watson.
On that computer, yeah. When to move forward.
What was that, Dr. Calgatti? Practice flexibility? Is
Yeah,
that
it's
what
the
you were
need for
talking about?
flexibility. It's all good.
gotta use that, like, bonus time comes around.
Let me know how it goes. Stretch out.
Yeah.
I tell my team to be fluid. 'Cause
Fluid.
you can't even be flexible.
Yeah, we're gonna be fluid tonight.
All right.
All right, Jakai, welcome.
Hi, so I'm Jakai. I'm a senior at OHS, he, him pronouns, and my social justice word is advocate.
I'm Dolly Sanchez. I'm a junior at Oswego East, and my social justice word is learn.
Hi, my name is Amila Thomas. I'm a sophomore at OHS, and my social justice word is powerful.
Hi, I'm Isabel Gershon. I'm a junior at OE. My pronouns are she, her, and my social justice word is empathy.
Hi, I'm Tyler Becker. I'm a senior at OE. My pronouns are he, him, and my justice word is change.
Hi, Miriam Osage at Boulder Hill. I am representing Kaz today. He was unable to make it, and his social justice word is identify. Identity, sorry.
Hello, guys. So, when you search up the word coalition, you'll find that it's defined as an alliance for the purposes of common or combined action. In that respect, we, the SD308 Coalition, are a union of students and sponsors allied for the purposes of perpetuating certain core values, among those being diversity, equity, and inclusion. So up here we have some of the things that we abide by. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, but we aim to learn about each other because we are supposed to be leaders of this thing we call DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And how can one lead without first learning to follow? We aim to uplift and amplify the voices of historically marginalized identities. And we want to bring joy and make connections to elementary school students through learning. So that's where the action part comes in. Because knowledge is great, but knowledge isn't power. The use of it is. So we put that to use. And we educate teachers on important topics that impact our ability to show up as our full selves in classes. So what is the coalition? It can sometimes be a difficult question because we are many things. We are dreamers, we are advocates, we are motivators, we are givers, but above all, we are co-conspirators.
That gave me chills.
Yeah.
So one of our first big events we've done is Amplify. Amplify is a bi-yearly event for students to share their unique experiences and thoughts on relevant social justice issues or issues within the district. We've been doing this since I was a freshman and now I'm a junior, and it's something that everyone in the coalition looks forward to every year. It's something we all talk about, and it's always just such a wonderful experience. I've always left feeling so great, and it's been something that makes me want to stay in. It's where students can get on stage and talk about their experiences to an audience and feel validated, educate on issues, and learn from each other. And our next Amplify event this year is March 21st, 2024. It's going to be here at Oswego East, anyone virtual. So we'd love to have all of you in attendance.
And I'm going to second that by saying the last one that we had last year actually had elementary students there as well. One of them spoke in front of the entire auditorium of high schoolers and parents, all of it. So it's not just the high schoolers who do an amazing job. It is profoundly moving, but also the little ones that show up as well.
So another thing we've been doing are lunch and learns, where we have teachers come in during their lunch period and us coalition students will go in during ours, and we'll have discussions with them or we'll educate them on a certain issue. I've participated in one casual one that was it was similar to the forum, where we had teachers around tables with students and we got to talk about issues that we decided on, and that was such a positive experience. And so many of those teachers I still see in the hallway, and we say hi and we know each other even though I've never taken a class with them. And a more recent one, we also did one on Ramadan during that time of the year, just so teachers knew this is what's going on with your students, this is what they need for support, and all the programs we had in place for that. So yeah, we've just been having a lot of positive and connecting conversations, and we've been able to give teachers and students both be able to start to bridge that gap.
Yeah, so some of the challenges we've been having is trying to get teachers and students to feel comfortable about touchy subjects such as mental health. We just want everyone to feel like they have a place to speak what they're feeling without feeling judged, and we just want them to have a safe space around them, and also providing good times so we can get everyone involved.
And our hopes for the future, we definitely want to continue this program, so we want to work on expanding to different topics as it becomes relevant, and just making sure we have more opportunities, and then giving teachers more opportunities to learn where they also feel that they don't feel like they're forced, but they feel excited to come in and have this experience with students.
In addition to that, we also want to work with our lower grades. We are trying to collaborate more with elementary schools, as well as their teachers and staff to get them more involved with the coalition. Last year, we had 2 students go to Old Post, and where they write a book about Ramadan to educate younger children about their religion. But we're also trying to get similar groups like us at the lower levels. At Boulder Hill, we have the Baby Coalition that works with within their school to build safe spaces for discussions to happen. And it's all about just giving back to the community that we are so proud to be a part of.
Okay, questions?
No,
Wait.
there
Oh, no.
was the slide.
Technical
they missed
issue.
the slide. Number 7. Slide number 7. That's not even the right. What happened?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we had another program this year, and it happened earlier this year, and it was called Ascend. Ascend really helped to bring out some topics and some things that people really don't talk about, and some powerful movements that you think you wouldn't talk about in class. And it was like a classroom-based experience, and you had chances to go into breakout rooms, and you had to go into breakout rooms and see what the different, see how it felt, and you got to feel a feeling, and these teachers helped you see the different things throughout the programs. And Ascend was really nice, and it was really well put together, and I think Ascend really helped. It was all great, and it had very good things going for it. I should have signed up for the Black Girl one, but I didn't think about it afterwards. But another one I had was just it was talking about the challenges that you go through, and it was talking about the hard topics that we have to talk about. And it was some of these people don't want to talk about it, but you have to talk about it because you have to get people comfortable with the uncomfortable.
All right.
This last slide was Kaz's, so I'm going to honor him just by reading it verbatim. Our dreams. We want the coalition to be a soft place to land for all students who want to see equity, diversity, and inclusion in all schools within District 308, to allow every student to see themselves in learning spaces and the environment in all schools. We also want to be seen, elevated, lifted up, and valued for our unique identities and experiences. We want to increase the coalition group at the high school level and also create coalitions at the junior high level in order to improve their educational experiences before entering high school. Thank you.
Very good.
Any questions for us?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What can we do to support you? And by the way, I've already got the March date down on my calendar.
Perfect.
great last
So I think just promoting what we're doing and making it more clear to students that we're a safe place, and just supporting us when we have initiatives, because that's something we're working on right now is we're choosing a social action issue that we want to address. And then just for some of those, it will affect the school, so students may be coming to the board. So we just ask you to keep an open mind with those issues and just to, I guess, follow along with what we're doing.
Like last year with Amplify, our first one was about mental health, and it was really eye-opening seeing like the differences in how people have, and you just to know that people aren't alone in those things.
One thing I'd say is if everyone here could just tell one person about what we do, about who we are, that would help. That would mean the world to us, because we need representation right now.
Good answer.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, anyone,
Anything
or
else?
comments?
How has this changed your perspective on school?
Throughout the coalition, I've seen like a perspective change because some of these people I don't go to school with because there's two different schools. So when I got to coalition, I met new people and I gained new friendships that I never would have thought I had, and it brought a new sense of community to life.
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
Yeah, I think that the coalition kind of inspired me to take on the position as a student ambassador, or it just made me feel more confident in that. So and just made me kind of more aware of what's going on with our schools and feel kind of less alone in some issues, being able to talk to people about it. And it's just something I feel like we all look forward to the meetings, especially when we get to do the joint ones, and we all look forward to Amplify. Everyone's just very excited about it and positive about it.
Anybody else want?
Sorry. A school, more so than the building, is the people, from my experience. That's what makes this experience. So I'd say that how the coalition shaped my school experience is meeting new people, being exposed to different cultures that I never, like, otherwise wouldn't have encountered. That's the reason why we do this. That's our purpose, and I think the coalition honors that each and every day.
Oof.
Going on to what he said. Okay. Going on to what he said, I definitely feel a lot more open to talk about my problems, whether it be with like my friends or teachers or whatever. I definitely feel like my school is very open about mental health, and I feel like they know, hey, like mental health is real. So I just feel like safe here. I feel like my peers around me know what our friend is like going through. So I feel like they just like know that we're here, like no matter what. And that's
Thank you.
I do have one question. Oh, are you?
No. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you answer that one? Did you answer that question?
Yeah, I didn't have
Okay.
Okay. I do have one question, and I'm not sure if it's like, whatever happens at Ascend stays at Ascend, but I got to ask. So you were all there, right? Were you in the dance line at the end or not? Yeah. All right.
Great question.
One of my students was claiming to be at the front of it, so I had to get that question in for Mari.
I just want to make a comment in that I've lived in this community for almost 30 years, and what I would love seeing now is the fact that even though we have two schools, and it's okay to have their own culture and their own identity, but at the end of the day, I still want to see you all as one community, see us all as one community. And so for me to hear you all say that, it just warms my heart. It's okay to have a cross-town rival and all of that, but at the end of the day, can we come together as one? And so I love hearing that this is perpetuating that, right? So I love it.
I have a quick.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity to, I went to Amplify, and I think there was a poem describing co-conspirator. I think that this might be a good time to tell people what a co-conspirator is, and kind of spread your message.
So a co-conspirator is basically someone that is not just an ally to someone, not just someone that's on the sidelines cheering someone on. It's someone who is actively involved in an issue and actively involved in helping people The one example we always use is when the Confederate flag was hanging in South Carolina, and a woman climbed up to take it down, and a white man put his hands on the pole before the police tased it. So he wasn't just on the side cheering for racial justice. He put himself on the line to help protect a black woman, and while she was fighting for her rights.
Okay, thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Ms. Osich and Dr. Waller.
Yes, thank you.
Next, we are going to invite Dr. Kincaid and Faith Dahlquist to speak to the annual report on student learning. I think this report is really a crucial element of feedback that we receive annually, and I'm going to invite Faith to lead us off.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I wanted to start off by explaining that the state school report card is just some of the information that we use for continuous improvement. We also have our own assessments, such as FastBridge, our own common assessments, walkthroughs, discipline data. But this is very important data that we get annually from our state. And this is an example of how we use this to measure our progress. So one of our goals that we set when we put out Envision 308 was to raise reading achievement by 10%. And also math by 10%. And if you look at where we were in March of 2022, we had 32.2%. Our goal then by 2026 was 42.2. By March of 2023, we hit 40.3 already. So those are some really great gains, but then you also see in math where we remained relatively stagnant, and we have a few more years to go to be able to hit our goal. Tonight, we're just going to provide information around summative designations and processes, and then also review school report card data and information. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kincaid.
Thank you so much. So in terms of our summative designation, our state assigns one of 5 designations. Our schools were one of the 4, so we'll talk a little bit about each of the 4: exemplary, commendable, targeted, and comprehensive. The information that you see determines how our schools fall into the different categories. So if our school falls in the top 10% with no targeted subgroup in the bottom 5%, then that school is then receiving a summative designation of exemplary. For commendable, the overall performance is not in the top 10% and does not have any subgroup in the bottom 5%. A school can be determined as targeted if their overall performance is not in the top 10%, but they have at least one subgroup that is part of that bottom 5%. And then finally, in order to be comprehensive, you either have to have an overall performance in the bottom 5%, a graduation rate that's below 67, or have a school that has previously been in a targeted improvement school improvement cycle that did not come out. So essentially, if they were targeted prior and remained a targeted summative designation. So how the schools receive the designation depends on the level of the school. So in order for those overall scores to be determined, the calculations for elementary and junior high are based on ELA math proficiency as well as growth as determined by the IAR, which is grades 3 through 8, the science proficiency, which is the Illinois Science Assessment, and then the English Learner Progress to Proficiency, which is Access. In a few minutes, Ms. Dahlquist will talk a little bit more about our specific scores as related to these state assessments. So that's essentially the 75% academic indicator, both elementary and junior high. The 25%, though, is student success indicators, of which 20% is chronic absenteeism, where chronic absenteeism is students that have missed at least 10% of school days, either excused or unexcused, as well as student participation in the climate survey. The climate survey that we use in Oswego 308 is 5 essentials. So it is based just on the participation rates of students that are taking 5 essentials, which are grades 4 and up. High school is determined and calculated a little bit different. Still a 75%, 25% ratio with 75% academic indicators, but 50% of that is determined by graduation rates, where the weighted average is 60% 4-year, 30% 5-year, and 10% 6-year for the cohort graduation rates. So students that are part of a incoming class of 9th grade. Then ELA and math proficiency as measured on the SAT, which is typically taken junior year, science proficiency, which is the Illinois Science Assessment, and then English learner progress to proficiency, which again is similar to elementary and junior high with access. The 25% student success indicator at high school is chronic absenteeism, 9th grade on track, and the climate survey, which is 5 essentials, again, participation. So after the score is determined for each school in the state of Illinois, the cut scores of that top 10% and bottom 5% is determined. So for elementary and junior high, these are the scores that were released in terms of, in order to be considered for exemplary, you had to have a score above 81.45 in order to then be considered part of the targeted or comprehensive. You had to have a score below 35.39. This is for elementary and junior high. For high school, scores are a bit different. In order to be considered for exemplary, you had to be above 81.45, and then the bottom 5%, I'm sorry, 91.24, and the bottom 5% was 11.99. So new this year through our interactive school report card, so this is publicly available for each school for both overall and all of our subgroups. You can look school by school and see what performance level was overall. So that's kind of the roof. So you can see what the overall score was, the summative designation. But then what we start to do is dig into those individual indicators. So for example, the graphic that you see where ELA proficiency is 7.5 out of 7.5, this school received full credit on that indicator. And we'll talk a little bit more about what proficiency levels are when we get to the actual school improvement data. But this is a new interactive graphic, so all of the scores that we talk about and refer to are available publicly. So in terms of our district, we had 3 schools that were received a summative designation of exemplary: Churchill, Homestead, and Wolf's Crossing. We had 15 that were commendable. So Fox Chase, Grand Park, Hunt Club, Lakewood Creek, Old Post, Prairie Point, Southbury, the Wheatlands. All 5 of our junior highs, Bednarsik, Murphy, Plank, Thompson, and Trauberg, and both of our high schools, OH and OE. We had 1 targeted elementary and then 1 comprehensive elementary. So the reason why we fell into that targeted was not, or comprehensive, was not based on our overall performance. It was 1 subgroup. So Boulder Hill received and moved from that commendable to targeted based on the performance of the subgroup children with disabilities, which includes children with both a 504 and an IEP. And Long Beach also, their all score was in the commendable range. They had 1 targeted subgroup, same subgroup as Boulder Hill, children with disabilities, but since Long Beach had previously been in a school improvement cycle, this is why they moved from targeted to comprehensive. So what that looks like is in this school year, so 23-24, we will enter a planning year for both Boulder Hill and Long Beach. We will receive support from the state. We had our Long Beach meeting today. What then it will look like for the next 3 years is a 3-year implementation. So throughout this 4-year cycle, we will receive grant support through the Title I School Improvement Grant. We will be working with the state and with our schools, with our stakeholders, to really plan and develop the plan throughout the year. We will be coming to the board for a board-approved school improvement plan towards the end of this school year in preparation for 25. So here is just some local districts and their overall summative designation as just some reference to districts similar to size and location to our district. So with that, Mrs. Dahlquist is going to take us through some specific school report card data.
And as she begins that, I want to just underscore for the board that when we look at this data from a district and a systems level, we really think about it as opportunities for engagement and support. That really, these are, for us, as we are analyzing this, and you're going to hear more about that at our next board meeting. We're going to return to this, but I just want to underscore, as you listen to this data, be thinking about the ways in which we that's the way I think about it, and that's the way I'm inviting our team to think about, which is that what does this change in terms of our ability to support and to provide ongoing systems and changes to our schools specifically.
Are you saying in regards to the designations?
Both,
Okay.
the designations and any review of data, the whole thing, comprehensively. Great question.
All right, this slide just shows the enrollment and demographic information from 2018 to 2023. You'll notice during that time we went down about 1,300 students. The next few slides, some of these are exact screenshots that anybody can go into and look for at the Illinois report card site. Some of the acronyms on this slide, and I'll go a little bit slower on the ELA for English Language Arts, so that you see what you have in front of you. So the dark green is the percent of students that were exceeding the readiness, then the lighter green is the meets. Most of the times we put those together so that you can see the overall proficiency. Some good things on this particular slide, and this is reading data and ELA data for grades 3 through 8 only. We had a sizable jump, almost 10 percentage points increase in proficiency from last year to this year. And then the bottom half of that slide is just the comparables for the whole state.
Just for a learning moment, can we explain why we don't have 2018 IAR data? I know the answer to this, but.
So there was this thing going on where school wasn't happening in session.
No, 2018.
Oh, from 2018, because it's just 5 years.
Another one.
Yeah, another. I was like, oh.
What? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So why? Because there was a change in assessment, and we're going back through 5 years. Sorry.
Yeah. So because in 2018 we had Park, right? Is that correct? Park.
Correct.
Right. So it was a completely different test.
Correct.
Okay.
And then 2020, where I went down the wrong way, is because 2 weeks before that is when COVID hit. All right, and this is the demographic data as we look through at different of our different groups. And then this again is the percent meeting and exceeding as combined. And you'll see that our Asian demographic group saw the most increase, while our African American group saw the least amount of increase. This next slide, I want to say that this is directly from the state, and this is a little complicated to understand, but this is giving the context of what the proficiency targets are for 5th and 6th grade. So what the state did, if you look at 2022, that's where the percentage of students, where they were at. And then if you go all the way down to 2033, the state is wanting everyone to be at 90. So then they built the stair steps for each year, how much gains needed to be made to get to that 90. So there are different amounts of progress that need to be made in different demographic groups by year. This next piece is very similar to the data that we looked at for ELA, but this is for math. Not as rosy of a picture for us. We had just a slight change in math for proficiency from the year before to this year, and then you see that the state had a little bit of progress as well. This again is just the different demographic groups for math. You'll see that the highest racial demographic group for here was our Black students, while our lowest was Asian. So that was a difference from the slides before. So in summary, and we put it in green because we're excited about this and want to commend all of the staff members that are working on this, is that we had a fairly large increase in percent proficient from the last year, but we held steady with just a little bit of a decline there for math. Then this is SAT, so now we're switching to high school. This is looking again at English language arts, where we were from the before 2022, just a little bit up by 2023, and then you also see where we were compared to the state. This is the different demographic groups again. We saw the greatest growth in Asian and African American students, with less growth with our Hispanic students. This is high school SAT for math. Here we did see decline. This is an area that we'll need to address. This is the demographic groups for math, and our racial demographic group that saw the highest growth was African American, and our demographic group that had the least were our white students. There's just the summary of where we went from 35.8% meets and exceeds to 37.1%, and then in math with that slight decrease. This is science, where we went down just a smidge. And again, this is tests in grades 5, 8, and 11 that make up these scores and the state comparison. And this is the assessment of readiness for growth. ELA is in the top half, math is in the bottom. And what this is looking at is our average student growth percentile. Again, slight growth there in ELA and a little bit of a decline in math.
Can you?
Sure.
Can you tell me this, what that scale means?
What
on that last slide? What that growth means, what those numbers mean?
Sure. So this is kind of complicated, so here goes. All right, so each student gets a student growth percentile, and they look at students that were here for the year before, okay? And they look at the students that have that same scale score of a test from the year before and compare it to all those students across the state that had that same scale score the year before and how much growth they had made. Then they rank those students. So the students that made the biggest growth from there might be up at the 98, where the student that made the lowest with that same scale score would be a 1. Then you find your score. Then what the district and the state does, so our district score are all of our student growth percentiles added together and then divided by the number of students that had an actual growth score. So for instance, our third graders that took the test this year, none of them would have a growth proficiency because this is the first time that they took the test. If you'll recall, when we talked about this last year, we also had quite a few students that weren't here the year before because they were in remote instruction. So this year we have a lot more students feeding into those scores that have growth.
So is there a district that has a 98? Probably not, right?
No, I wouldn't think so because you've got all different.
It's based on all the students, so.
Correct.
So 50 would be probably.
That's
that
about
means that you're doing
average.
good. Yeah.
That most of your students are making, right at that average amount of growth. The higher you get from 50, the more students that you have that are making more than average growth.
I think that's a good question too, because while I'm not as familiar with IAR as Park, I can remember I had 7th graders who would get like a perfect score, right? Not a lot, but you'd have a couple. There's no way that they're going to grow. I mean, if you think about it, how do you grow from a perfect score? So like it's almost like a catch-22, right? You're congratulating the student, great work, but they're not going to supply you any growth.
And then our English learner students that are in our English learner program take the access test, and 7.7% of our English learners exited, meaning that they found proficiency as measured by the access test. And in summary, our IAR student growth in ELA is looking good, and our English learner student exit percentage remained consistent. Now we're going to get into a few more components of the Illinois report card.
So as Dr. Kilgatti talked about opportunities, our next couple of areas that we would like to look at really looks at some of our strengths, some of our areas of improvement, where can we engage and support and even intervene. So our 4-year graduation rate did take a slight decline. This is the graduation cohort for 2023. So these were the students that were freshmen when COVID hit. So in terms of our 5-year, we remained fairly consistent, as did our 6-year. So overall, though, our cohort of 4-year, we only saw one subgroup that increased from 22 to 23. All of our cohorts and our subgroups did decrease, while we were above the state average in all but one subgroup. For our demographics, we did see decrease from 22 to 23. Another area that we, again, provides opportunity to do some earlier intervention within high school is our 9th grade on track. This is something that we monitor throughout freshman year, looking at the end of first semester and then measured at the end of second semester. So in order to be considered on track, a student has to finish with 6 credits, but not have failed more than one semester of a core class. So for example, if you had a student that took 7 classes, as many of our students do, but for example, failed Algebra 1 first semester and Biology second semester, that student would be considered off track, even though they had enough credits, but failed then 2 semesters. So in Freshmen on Track, we did see an increase in Freshmen on Track for our current sophomores. So our 2023 were freshmen last year. We saw an increase from 90.5 to 92.1. We also saw an increase in all but 2 subgroups from our cohort in 22 versus our cohort in 23. So different areas from freshmen to by the time they graduate that provides us information to engage not only conversations with our students, but with our teachers and our parents.
Can I ask, does the research show, and I'm assuming it does, that this is predictive of graduation?
Yes. So,
so we should see 94 going up.
Correct.
So this particular data point is, and why they measure it by this definition is because of the off-track nature. That by failing any of freshman year courses or core classes, that's indicative of future potential falling off track in terms of graduation requirements. So while we look at this number and the goal is then to intervene to make sure students are on track. So this is not necessarily where we would hope that our graduation rates will be. So that's why we provide.
The fact that it's going up is kind of what I'm saying.
The fact that it's going up is very positive. The 2020.
Nobody failed, right?
Well, correct. So essentially, when COVID hit on March 13th, grades were locked. So if you were passing at that point, you passed the semester, and if you were failing, you were given multiple opportunities to pass. So grades were structured a little differently in 2020 than they have been in 21, 22, and 23. So the fact that we are back up on the incline only shows ideally that we will see increased graduation rates as our cohorts move throughout our high schools.
Quick question. Internally, do we have any additional data? Because first off, I'm wondering, like, why is it only 9th grade? But then do we have any additional data that we track for the subsequent grades?
Absolutely. We track, then we move to just credits and looking at not only overall credits, but then we have specific graduation credits in math, in ELA, in social studies. So after 9th grade, we then start to look graduation requirement by graduation requirement, and then overall. Because essentially, after sophomore year, you should have 2 years of math, 2 years of English, at least 1 social studies credit. So we start to look more targeted to the grade level and those corresponding scores, or grades and credits.
I was gonna say, when I came last year to do a site visit here at Oswego East, they sat down and gave me an entire presentation, right, about how the interventions they were using and who, you know, how they were targeting was really helping this, if you will. And one of the things they were talking about was how we could do this for sophomores as well. That was the pitch, of course, at the time. But you can obviously see, and I'm curious, like if that, hopefully that continues, right? But I mean, obviously that's a discussion to be had. But if for some reason it doesn't, like, we should definitely take a look at that number, where it goes, because yeah, they're watching. I know at the building level. I'm sure they are at district level too. But it was a very impressive presentation.
Yes. So as we mentioned, not only do we look at freshman on track and graduation rates at the high school, but across the district, another data point that not only feeds into our summative designation, but is something that we can use to support and intervene is our chronic absenteeism. So both of these, whether it's graduation, freshman on track, or chronic absenteeism, we're looking, our schools are looking by school, by grade level, by subgroup. We did see a slight increase in our chronic absenteeism. We kind of equate chronic absenteeism to golf. The lower our percentage, the better. So what this is saying is 22.9% of our students met the state definition for chronic absenteeism, which is 10% absent rate. So it's about 18 days of school. It includes both excused and unexcused. Historically, we tend to talk a lot about truancy, which is just unexcused, but chronic absenteeism does look at both unexcused and excused absences. If a student is hospitalized, those absences are removed and are not part of this calculation. So we do intervene. We have a tiered system of communication with our families, planning. We meet with our buildings on a monthly rotation. We engage conversations with our Regional Office of Education. So this is something that the Student Services Department puts a lot of time and attention in, and this is something that we will talk more about, as Dr. Calgatti mentioned, at our next meeting.
Is there any correlation between those buildings that were on the exemplary list and absenteeism?
So absenteeism occurs for many different reasons. So there is some certain subgroups that show higher chronic absenteeism across the district. While our rates, with the exception of one subgroup, is below, we do see differences. So our district is in green with chronic absenteeism and some of our targeted subgroups. So that is all part of our discussion and planning. So, but yes, Mrs. Simulton, we do see some relationship between our subgroups and our chronic absentee rate.
Thank you.
With that, is there any questions that we can answer?
I don't have any questions, but, or, I don't think they're questions, but I just want to do a little education, make sure I'm reading things right. The designations that are set for the schools, they're, by the way the state sets them, they are set after scores are in. So there will always be schools that are in the targeted group. There will always be schools that are in the commendable group. There'll always be schools in the middle. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the other comment I have is, I think slide 20 is the slide where it shows kind of the increments that the state has provided for each of our subgroups to reach proficiency. My encouragement, and I think this would be supported by the board and the administration, that it shouldn't take us, 9 years for, these subgroups to meet proficiency in these areas. So thank you, state, but we'll try and do better.
I have more comments than questions, so if somebody else has questions, please go first.
I don't have questions.
Okay. Well, first of all, I know in our committee we discussed NAEP, right? And I think one thing to share is that Illinois is one of only 5 states in the nation that has state assessments that's at the proficient level. So, like, what does that mean, right? And you can correct me where I'm wrong, but if you have a 1 through 5, let's say if your scale is 1 through 5, in Illinois you have to hit a 4 to be considered proficient. Whereas the former test, I don't know if that's the case, but I know the rigor was increased, and there's other states where you just have to hit a 3 on that 1 through 5. So if you're looking at a state's raw score, that doesn't necessarily mean anything necessarily. There are, I think, 4 designations, and I forget what they are, but there's, like I said, there's only 5 that are at proficient level, Illinois being one of them. None of them are above. Most states are below. So they're already testing students below proficient level. That was one thing I know we discussed. The other thing too, which I'm not saying this is our situation, but we should realize that once you get into those target groups, it could be 10 students. It could also be 1 student, right? I certainly don't want to know the answer to that question because I don't want to go that route. But it may tie into an announcement I have later, and we'll get to that. The other thing too is when we look at the school districts in our area, there's definitely one that when you look at those designations, we're definitely excelling above, but there's not a whole lot of differences, if you will, when it comes to those designations. Some of it might be to what you were saying, Dr. Murillo, where you're really competing against each other, right, in this thing. I mean, that's how it is. You're going to have, there's 800 school districts, approximately. 80 are going to be in the top 10%, 80 are going to be in the bottom 10%. Doesn't matter what score they get unless everybody gets perfect score or the opposite, right? The other piece, you had mentioned Title I funds. And while that's great, there's also what is today, 13th? I think we're a couple days away from a potential shutdown. And one of the impasses on that is Title I funds, and some of the proposals are up to an 80% cut in Title I funds. So we have schools in need. We know we have schools in need, right? So one of 2 things happens, right? If that happens, either 1, the schools most in need aren't going to get those funds, or 2, we have to make the decision as a district to be equitable, help those schools out, and if we're going to be honest and have a frank conversation, it's going to be at the expense of other schools, right? So I encourage people to reach out to, probably the vast majority of us are in the 14th district, to reach out to Representative Underwood, anybody you know, or whatever the case may be, because that will have a huge impact, especially as we lose ESSER funds on top of that. There was one other piece I think actually I got it all. Sorry. So those were things. And again, if there's anything that I'm saying you don't agree with, please jump in or somebody else.
Is then because I know at our committee meeting we talked. This is kind of presentation, and then an upcoming meeting is like a review of your response, what the plan is. Okay, thank you.
That's correct.
Thank you for the
Thank
robust
you.
data.
Thank you very
and
much.
For congratulations on the 10% increase.
Yeah.
And the reading, all that stuff. Thank you.
Congratulations. All right, we're moving on to 7.1. Yes. Dr. Kelgati, Superintendent Report.
Your turn now. Just kidding.
Well, I have very little to say. What an exciting and full evening already. I think the feedback this evening that we received on our IAR testing was very reflective of what I would say are really what we all know, the great opportunity that exists in the district, the great opportunity to really right-size the experience of excellence for all our students, and the great charge before all of us that I also really hold very close to me. But I would say that all of that starts with beginning really to understand the climate and culture and the needs of our district. And one of the things that I shared earlier was that in entering the district, I really brought before the board an opportunity to spend the first 90, 100 days really engaging the community, from everyone from our staff to our students to our families to our community partners, through a variety of means, everything from meet and greets, and at our most recent retreat as a board, I had a chance to review these findings. And through that, some of the things that really came up to the surface, and I'm just going to put these on the slide for you here, is really, at the top of this is really that, number one, just the clear call for us to invest in our current relationships and to create new partnerships where we're investing in parents and in our local entities, and really start to think about how we're strengthening those. The second one is really a commitment to our mission for student achievement and to really learn and help invest our, I would say, district and organizational know-how around high-impact instructional strategies. Tonight you heard some early signs of success. I would say that there are many ways to start to measure this, from what we know as in terms of practices among teachers, classroom visits, supporting our teachers in their ability to plan effectively, and to really rally around students. Another area is really to strengthen the programs that really support the climate and culture of our district. This was really very high priority when I visited with families, when I met with the superintendent's advisory group. Climate and culture, safety in our schools, exercising those is really a fundamental priority that we're going to have to think about. And last but not least, really creating a foundation for a strong fiscal position to adequately fund the district's educational and climate priorities. Recently, we've already started to move on these. We had some early wins in terms of moving from a self-insured organization to a co-op, where we are now going to be able to leverage our funds along with 87 districts across the state of Illinois, and really move into a more financial strong position in that way. So this is just the beginning. I want to thank, really honestly, board, the support that I have experienced entering the district has been phenomenal in terms of the vision, the feedback I've received. And I want to thank your support board for this feedback and helping me really launch and meet with folks. The Superintendent's Advisory Group, the Superintendent Student Council, and the ambassadors, working with students weekly. I've already spent a couple lunches at high schools, and I got to tell you, it's probably the highlight of my weeks now, which is I'm already starting to invite members of my senior leadership team to join me, because to just sit down with students and hear their stories, to hear who their favorite teachers are. Oh, you got to go talk to this teacher. This is the teacher you got to talk to. You got to go learn about this. And to learn about what's made a difference for them in their careers. To hear about the level of passion that their teachers have for them. It takes all this work and makes it really full and understanding. So that's a practice that I will be continuing, which is spending time in each of our schools. And another part of this has really been celebrating the variety of strengths of the culture and heritage in our community. Recently, there was a tremendous evening of togetherness and reflection in honor of Dia de los Muertos, which was hosted by our BPAC parent organization. The event included crafts and games and food, fun, and really enjoying experiencing the many cultures in this district, but especially it's a moment of reflection. And just to dovetail with Veterans Day, where we got to hear and reflect on the lives and the sacrifices of our front line, those who've sacrificed and given their lives for service through our armed forces. As I close out my comments, I just want to invite everyone for an upcoming opportunity. So we have what I call the Superintendent's Advisory Group, which is a group of about 80 individuals, parents, principals, and educators. We have the Superintendent's Insights Group, which is kind of like a follow-up. We do a virtual thing where we get together online. And now we're going to be spawning this into a variety of forums where we're going to go deeper into these actions and objectives to see what are the priorities, what's missing, what are the specific things that are going to be related to our action steps, and to hear the voices of our community. And so the first one coming up is going to be an English Learner Forum. The event will be held on November 28th. So this is a plug if you're listening at home, listen up. The event will be held November 28th from 6 to 7:30 at Plank Junior High School. It's for all staff and parents to partner and discuss the English learner programs, including dual language programs. And so I want to thank the BPAC and also our leadership team for beginning to organize that. I want to now invite members of the board to join me in thinking of other events that have been happening and celebrating those as part of my superintendent's comments.
Yeah, so I'll start out the shout outs here. Last week we held our first board forum for the school year. And the event was organized around values that define our district. Definitely appreciate all that came out and participated. I know we have a student here who he's been showing up to a lot. Like I'm very impressed. So thank you also.
Thank you, Tyler.
We hope that these will continue to grow. One of the comments I know we received was, "Hey, I wish this was larger or attended by more," but it's actually probably the largest I've seen of those forums.
Yes, it was.
Also, we'd like to extend congratulations to our SD308 artists who received awards. 21st annual Chicagoland 4x5 art exhibition that was hosted at Oswego High School. Winning works were recognized November 8th at the opening night, and there were 180 plus award-winning works that were selected to receive awards. There were 1,800 entries, so that's, what is that, about 10%, representing 68 schools. And so congratulations to Oswego High School student Cheyenne Beasley for earning a first place finish in the painting category. Very impressive.
Another shout out to Karina Gonzalez, Oswego East, a poetic justice writer. She was recently published and featured in the Sun-Times publication La Voz. Additionally, a spoken word recording of her poem is going to be recorded and promoted by the National Museum of Puerto Rican Arts and Culture. Congratulations to Karina. We're so excited to see your work being published and being able to be shared with the rest of the world.
Yay.
And we will
That's good.
And we'll continue our congratulations for all of our amazing students, and congratulations to Coach Sprunger and his staff and the 2023 Girls Swim and Dive Co-op team. They were recently named the 2023 IHSA Combined State Champions. Wow. That's phenomenal. Their incredible talent and dedication to their sport really showed at the competition, and they brought back an amazing trophy to represent. We're so proud of them, and we look forward to acknowledging and celebrating the individual athletes and how they placed at the state at the next board meeting in January. And we also have 19 of our high school students who recently participated in National Letter of Intent Day, Signing Day. So years and years of hard work have led to this moment where these student athletes are committing to their verbal scholarship offers they have received from their various colleges for the next academic school year. This is a tradition. This is traditionally the first day that the high school seniors can sign a binding letter of intent for the collegiate sport with the school that is a member of the NCAA. So congratulations to these students, and best of luck to you and your continued academic and athletic success.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, SD308 fans, Saturday, right? 9 a.m., 1 p.m., district office. We are hoping to see you there if you want to ignite your career in special education. That's right, people. We are definitely in need of support staff and special education staff, and human resources is going to be available there for a special recruiting event dedicated just to you who are interested in joining our team and interested in special education. Whether you're a soon-to-be graduate or someone passionate about special education programs, this event is your gateway to exploring a fulfilling career with Oswego SD308. So please, come on out.
Please.
I think we have a future in broadcasting.
I feel like you were going to go Sunday.
Yeah, race fans. Yeah.
So last week, we recognized National School Psychology Week. It's near and dear to my heart. We appreciate the work of the school psychologists and those educators who work alongside them who help our students thrive. This year's theme was Let's Grow Together, inspired by the importance of both personal and shared strengths in our growth as individuals and school communities in every season of life. So thank you, school psychologists and other aides. Over to you.
So last Friday, many of our schools hosted programs, special guests, celebrations, and assemblies to honor veterans across our community. There's a short video highlighting many pictures from these events on our district website. One special veteran was World War II veteran Mr. Dwayne Stevenson, whose granddaughter works at Prairie Point. The entire school joined in singing happy birthday to him during their assembly as he turned 100 years old on Veterans Day. Thank you to Mr. Stevenson and all area veterans for your service to our country. Yeah.
All right.
That's
Thank
quite
you.
amazing, right?
Yeah, it was.
100
He actually,
years.
and he shared actually that he was a student in the Little White School. Is that what that was? Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
he said he remembered in the meeting. He said that he remembers being in that school. It was a multi-age classroom, multi-grade classroom.
Oh, yeah.
And he remembers being in there, and it was just remarkable to witness him. And he's stature at 100. I mean, he was strong. So really an honor to be there with him and join him that day. So. And with that, I want to thank the board, and that concludes my superintendent remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Calgatti. We'll move to 7.2, board committee reports. We'll start with equity and teaching and learning. Anything to report out?
Nothing particular to report out. We reviewed basically all the data that we reviewed tonight. A really robust discussion. I want to thank my fellow committee members and for that discussion prior to tonight. It really helped me get ready for tonight. Those are open meetings, just a reminder to the public. So we had a few people join us to learn about what we were talking about at that meeting. So as a reminder, the public is welcome at all of our committee meetings as well.
I would definitely put that meeting in my top 10% committee meetings of all time. So that would mean that that meeting was exemplary, according to the Illinois State Report Card. So I echo that. Well, we also had student participation and public comments. So yeah, I'm going to put that as exemplary meeting.
Did you have a takeaway from it?
Yeah, you know, it was very interesting because, and I don't want to speak for you, Eugene, but a lot of the discussions that we had at the board retreat, like they came up, right? And I don't know about you, but I definitely saw, and I don't think we were ever in disagreement. We just had a different lens, right? And I feel like going through that meeting, it allowed me to see things more clearly from your lens, if that makes sense. I mean, I'm assuming, right? I don't know, but that's how it felt.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping it felt the same way for you as well.
No, I agree. I think I can't wait till the next meeting to really dive into how and what we're going to do in order to help our students to continue to improve. And so that's what I appreciate about the committee is that it gave us an opportunity to talk about not what's happening now, but what could be. And so I think that, it was a very stimulating conversation, and all the expertise that was in the room, it just helped us to dream a little bit and then get excited about how we can help continue to support our students and staff.
I agree.
Okay, policy and legislative.
So I'm going to read what's on this, and then I'll have a couple comments unless anyone else would like to read it. Field trip procedures were reviewed. Overnight trips and trips over 200 miles will be presented in the consent agenda at the board meeting for approval. Since the new press issue did not come out yet, we were able to spend some time discussing next steps with legislation. The committee received the contact information for our local representatives and senators. Discussion was held on how to best engage in meaningful conversation with them about our district's specific needs, looking at districts around us to join, researching districts that are a similar size, and finding out the specific tier they are in. Mr. Ploger generously offered to start compiling information on district comparisons that can be discussed at the next meeting.
Yeah, and that was definitely educational, to say the least. I'm hoping some other people. We had this moment though where I said, "All right, let's talk homework," and I don't want to call anyone out, but there was a moment where, oh no, like I could see like people really thought I wanted to discuss district homework, and no, I was actually assigning myself homework. And so, to your point, just so full transparency, what I did was I went through a large number of districts and looked at size, looked at location, looked at funding levels, and tried to find out who looks most like us, right? And there were definitely some. We'll come back. We'll discuss those at the next committee meeting. It was very informative. It led me to some discussions with some board members outside of our district because they're doing some of these things. I'm really looking forward to Triple I this weekend because one of the things I'll be attending is how to set up one of those, and so get some advice on how others have. And so I think this will be very productive moving forward. I'll admit it's not moving as fast as I'd like, because I went home and got my homework done in like 2 days. I want to say I'm just overachiever maybe. Yeah, maybe
you're all about that stuff. You dove right in.
I had the database there ready to go, right? But at the same time, I think it's better to get it right than go on Mr. Ploger's time. So
I don't know why I'm asking this question. I'm trying to figure it out. But in regards to field trips, is there a definition of what constitutes a field trip for the school district? I don't know why I'm asking this question though, I guess I'm thinking about the approval process for this policy.
We have a couple tonight.
I know, I see it, but I'm saying, is there something that, does it have to be according to a club or something that's sponsored by?
School sponsor, typically, it's a school-sponsored event. So that's what defines a field trip. In other words, it is a teacher or a facilitator or a coach who's decided that we're going to go on a trip. And so to go someplace, right? So, for example, kindergarten classroom.
Eugene,
Yes.
do you understand why the policy was put in place?
Yeah, I think I'm asking the question. I don't remember where it came from, but I'm just trying to make sure that all of the trips that are being taken by SD308 students and staff, that there's no way to get around us approving it when it's over 200 miles.
Well, I think the problem is, my only concern is I understand the reason for it. When we have people taking our students overnight on trips and we find out, and I'm just using this as an example, that, who is in a room and all of that, there needs to be guidelines around that to protect our students. What I do have a concern about is there are some opportunities for our students when it comes to tournaments and stuff, where they won't be able to get before the board in time. So let's say they win one tournament and they get to go to another tournament. What is the backup plan for that?
I'm going to ask Dr. Kincaid to speak to that. And there's a
Yep,
question.
so in terms of the field trip form, with the policy review of the manual, that's why we're bringing these forward. So on the form, we do delineate between curricular, so tied to a class that a student is taking, versus co-curricular, which could be both sports, athletics, clubs, or activities. So there are, if it's coming overnight or more than 200 miles, then it needs to be sponsored. There are other things that you might hear about, you know, some overseas trips that are through some tour companies that are not board approved, but in order for it to be sponsored by the district, if it's overnight or more than 200 miles, it would need to be board approved. In terms of athletics, or even some of our activities like BPA, Skills USA, what we do is at the beginning of the season, we would bring it to get approved in case of. So the dates are planned out. Now it might not be the number of chaperones, because the number of chaperones or the ratio of chaperones would be dependent on the students that qualify for state or nationals, but we want to bring those forward to get approved in its essence to make sure, as you know, Board Member Johnson just mentioned, that we're not missing opportunities for our students. So that you'll see some of the trips that are upcoming, but then what you'll see potentially in the next meeting or two are just some open-ended of here are state or national trips that we want to get approved in case of student qualification.
I was gonna say when I was coaching, that's how we did it, right? We get our list of, all right, let's say I make it downstate, right, and we're going down to, I don't know, Springfield, right, which I still don't think is 200 miles, but whatever. We'd still put it well in advance, and then what would happen is if someone got lucky and beat us, then see how I got that in there. Then yeah, and then we would cancel it later, you know, and so yeah.
That makes sense. All right, thank you.
So I have a question about some of our legislative work or potential work. So you know how you talked about Title I funds earlier? And you said, you know, we should be contacting our state, federal,
That's federal.
Representatives. So my question to you is, or to the committee, is what kind of work is being done, or what kind of work could be done from that particular committee to support the thought?
Well, my reach out basically has, I've reached out to a couple districts, and what they have done is they have found other districts that are alike, that are similar to them, which is thus my homework. They've invited them in, and then a lot of it is, if I'm being blunt and honest here, is them really listening to the elected officials, because if you don't, they're not going to show up. And then it's very much like, hey, here's where we see our needs are. This is, but it has to be obviously a constructive dialogue. If it's a lot of, you know, finger pointing or this, that, and the other, they're not going to want to participate. And they're probably, if I'm being honest, more likely to participate if it's us doing this in conjunction with other school districts. Because now you're talking about a wider audience and a wider base. I mean, the good and the bad of our district is we have multiple reps and state senators inside the boundaries of our district. The negative part about that is that I don't know that we comprise a huge, like a majority chunk for any of them. Probably the closest is probably Kifawit. That's probably the closest, right? And I can't even say that we're necessarily the majority for her district. So without outreach to other districts and without trying to bring them in to also have these conversations, it's not impossible. It's just, it's going to be more difficult. And so that's why the committee tasked me with doing that, and I had no problems with that.
I would add to that, which is that I know that that's where the clarity of our vision and intentionality will make a significant difference on whatever we decide, for exactly what you said. And one of the greatest things that I've learned over the last 100 days is that there's tremendous opportunity. The question is, how well are we coordinating and rallying our resources and our thinking and we don't have to agree, but at the very minimum, we have to have a shared vision, right? We don't have to necessarily understand everything, but we have to get to that clarity of vision and where we're going, and that's going to make a difference. And we also have to invest in the resources to ensure that we're building the right pillars to get to that point. And if we don't have, it's hard to go out to, let's say, a legislative agenda until we really know what is it that we're pursuing and what the real gaps are. And I would say that that is something that we're starting to become much more, we're getting really clear about those things, right? Both in terms of when we've collaborated with the village recently, whether it's Montgomery or with Oswego, 308, and Aurora, in our collaborations, they're helping us surface. And that's a function of that learning to work together. Now we're starting to see what are some potential ways for legislative agendas. Now we're seeing what are those things that we need to invest in and start to put our money towards. I've heard, yeah, so.
And one other piece that, sorry, I don't mean to add on to your add-on, but the other piece too is, again, if we're being honest and blunt here, there are going to be times where they will take up some of our priorities, right? Or maybe not on purpose, but they take those up. Those are times where we should be in tune and know what's going on and commend and thank, and make sure that they're getting that recognition. It's like anyone else, if I show up at a job and I bust my rear end and I get the job done, it's going to be a lot better place for me to work if I'm getting that recognition as opposed to just being taken for granted. And, I'll use the village of Montgomery as an example. It's very easy for me to have conversations with them because the relationship has been a very positive one. And I've spoken about that many times. And I'm not going to sit here and say that any of them are looking for, necessarily for that from me, but it definitely helps when it comes to the relationship end of things.
Yep. Okay, thank you. All right, we're moving on to 7.3, board member comments. Anyone with board member comments?
Just quick. I attended the BPAC Dia de los Muertos celebration a couple weeks ago that you spoke of. They had BPAC meeting, food, drinks, crafts, and I asked you to please help me with the pronunciation.
La Loteria.
La Loteria.
Uh-huh.
Okay. All
You were
right.
playing it up there. Gambling, I heard.
Oh, yeah, they had some Loteria bingo, right? Also attended the multicultural night at Boulder Hill. I think it was the next day. It was entertaining, interactive, informative. Food was delicious. Principal Jones even showed us her double Dutch moves. Thanks to the Boulder Hill parents and staff for putting the event together. So that's, I think I did other things, but I got those two.
I have two things. I wanted to thank the community for coming out to the forum. I thought it was, it was a great event. Really good to be in communication and in conversation with a variety of community members. My other comment is, I've saved this for board member comments about our state report cards and the data that we reviewed this evening. I first want to thank all of our teachers, parents, administrators, and students for putting in the hard work every day to ensure that learning is happening and students are moving forward with their academic and personal goals. I know it's important for the board to review this data, just like we started to do tonight, and we did in our committee meeting as well, and also think carefully alongside the district administration about what that data is telling us. I also appreciate that the designations, at least in Illinois, incorporate more than just their standardized test scores and include things like attendance and the climate survey. I also know that, the standardized testing scores, the math and ELA scores will likely be cited often. And I want to say that these scores do not tell us everything about our students, and there are some real historical and current issues with the way standardized test scores are used to build narratives around our students, so I encourage all community members to educate themselves about how these scores and designations are decided on and reported on, and to educate themselves about the limitations in general of standardized tests. As I believe, and I think my fellow board members and district administrators believe, our students and your children are more than their scores on a standardized test. So with that said, data like the ones presented tonight are really just the beginning of a conversation that I know we'll continue to have. And I look forward to seeing, even maybe at our next board meeting, how we're going to holistically support all of our students. As I've said before, and I continue to say, our future in 308 is very bright.
Don't mind, I'll go next because I'm going to piggyback something off of what you said that I'll work in, which is that keep in mind that when we talk about the narrative of test scores, also the problem isn't necessarily that the scores have historically dropped because the test has changed. The problem is that they've stayed stagnant overall. That's the historical issue. You have to look at the fact that the tests have changed. The other piece, real quick, is thank you to the Wheatlands for inviting me out for the Veterans Day celebration. It was wonderful and very impressed, and very welcoming place always.
So I did some Veterans Day visits myself. I had breakfast at Hunt Club. They actually had a good turnout. They had 100 people, which includes families, but that was pretty well attended. And actually what they were going to do was they brought the kids outside to stand around the flag while they did announcements, so that was pretty cool. Then I went to Long Beach, and they had a pretty, every grade had their own patriotic song, so it was kind of fun. You see the difference between kids in kindergarten and kids in like 4th grade, but it was great. They also had veterans there, and they were playing the various, I like to call them fight songs. They were playing the various songs. They had a lot of vets standing up for that. And then I went to Lakewood Creek. Lakewood Creek had a vet there. Actually, he was one of the dads. He was a dad in the 1st grade room, and he was handing out dog tags, and he was talking to the kids about Veterans Day. And boy, that dad's daughter, that little 1st grader, was so incredibly proud of her. She was just, she was looking up to him, and it was just, it kind of gave you chills. So that was a lot of fun. So I'd like to thank all 3 schools for inviting me. Also, prior to that, a couple weeks before that, I went to the first talk by Bionic. Again, you saw the presentation last time before, whenever they were here doing their presentation. What a great group of kids. It was pretty moving. It was pretty intense. It was all day. It's amazing what students came and actually talked about, and they were able to do it without fear of judgment. And some of it was way heavier than I expected it to be. So it was great. December 1st, I look forward to going to a hike, which is for the lower grades, and I'm doing that over at Prairie Point. So I'm looking forward to that. Holiday craft show put together, that was amazing. That was crowded. Stopped by the Superintendent Advisory Committee meeting, which was not at all what I expected, but some really intense people there. And it was well run. It was a group of people that really want to make some changes. So that was great to see. And that's enough.
Was there a pun intended there? Hike at Prairie Point?
Hike at,
dad joke, sorry.
Yeah, that was a stretch. But
Maybe Boulder Hill.
There you go. Better.
Anyone else? Okay. Moving on to.
I would just like,
go
if
ahead.
I could, Mrs. Simulton, I just wanted to send out a huge congratulations, and maybe it was already said, I apologize, to our combined Oswego Co-op girls swim team winning the state so exciting, and we just randomly happened to be driving by, and I thought it was some sort of accident or something, but what a happy accident was to see their welcome home, and congratulations to those students.
Yes, thank you. All right, 7.4, student ambassador reports.
All right, hello everybody. So throughout our last SSAC meetings, we went in depth into our teacher survey, ensuring that we asked questions that would provide our committee with the information we needed to ensure our survey is successful in getting teacher perspective with the goal of bridging the gap between students and teachers. This will further improve the relationships between them. Through this, we further understood that we need to also understand teacher mental health and how that plays a role in those relationships. We were able to make the distinction that the goal is not to evaluate the teachers in their classrooms, yet to get a general understanding to further our goal. We were able to construct questions that will help us achieve our goal while still ensuring that we get authentic teacher responses. Our goal going forward is to have our survey completed by the end of November and to the teachers early in December. The SSAC is looking forward to gaining our teachers' input and continuing the work of strengthening teacher and student relationships for a stronger community as a result.
So, as Luke was getting at, we've had multiple exciting SSAC meetings since our last board meeting. We had 2, and over them we began a more in-depth plan for our upcoming high school-wide Ascend event on January 26th, and then the one on February 16th. With the dates being so close, we decided it would be best to plan and communicate both starting now. The main points discussed were how we can guarantee attendance while giving students choice and the ability to claim this experience as their own. To do this, we decided we would like students to be able to choose which speakers they would like to hear from, but we will work on establishing a way to have students decide beforehand on which speakers they would like. We will also work on establishing an effective way to take attendance on those days. We also decided how many speakers we would like to speak. Originally, we would have liked around 60 speakers, but we realized that's not very feasible for the time frame and during the school day. It will take a lot of effort to gain that many willing speakers, so we hope to secure as many as possible so that we can plan for a larger experience in the future. So reminding anyone that's watching, if you think you have an interesting story to share with students, there is a Google form on the SD308 website that we would love for you to fill out. We also said it is important to all us that we have speakers who can be physically present and share their story, and we want to be able to lead a virtual debrief with our peers after the final speaker's story is shared. Behind the scenes, district and building administrators have been meeting to support our cause. We'd like to thank Dr. Paul, Mr. I struggle to say his name, Arntzen, and our principals for their continued support on making this vision come to life. Lastly, I'd like to acknowledge the school board forum last Monday. Guguk and I were both in attendance and had a great time talking to administrators, parents, teachers, and peers on what they value most within our district. Thank you to everyone who attended and shared their experiences.
Isabel, what were those dates again for Ascend?
January 26th and then February 16th.
Thank you.
And thank you both for being there and participating. It was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the results of the survey. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're hoping to get that out soon so we can start deconstructing that as soon as possible. And yeah, hopefully by our next meeting we'll have some results on that survey for you all.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Great.
Can you guys tell me again where to find that, where people can sign up to speak or volunteer?
I believe it's on the website,
Okay.
but
I will look for it. Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to 8.1 consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Make a motion to approve all items under consent, including 8.1 minutes from the Board of Education workshop on October 21st, 2023, open and closed session, minutes from the Board of Education meeting on October 23rd, 2023, open and closed session, and minutes from the Board of Education public forum, open and closed session. 8.2 to acknowledge the FOIA requests received by the district, and 8.3 to approve the field trips presented.
Okay, are there,
Second.
I have one comment.
yeah, are there any questions or comments?
This was an oversight because I didn't see it when I was looking at materials for tonight, but just on the field trip form, there's a place where the chaperones are supposed to indicate male, female, or non-binary, and it doesn't say that on there right now. So just kind of as a follow-up, I think we can still approve tonight, given that, and then ask them to do that. Do you see what I'm saying? The chaperones.
The chaperones themselves.
Yes. I think that's what it's asking to do on the form, correct?
It's the number of students.
No, on number 8, where it says legal name of all staff and adults accompanying, and then it says M/F/MB for all overnight field trips. Is that what they're supposed to do? Or am I misreading that?
Yeah, because you have to, if you're going on a field trip and you have a certain number of individuals.
Right,
and
like-
if they're-
Yes, in number 5, so 5A talks about ensuring the ratios above
Yeah.
described under supervision align to number 3, which describes the number of students in those categories. So yes.
Right.
So by the time of the field trip, we will ensure that that alignment has
Okay, thank you.
has happened. Yeah.
I think I said 8, so I think I said that wrong. Sorry if I pointed you to the wrong place. I don't know why.
No worries. Yes, 3 and 5 will align.
Yes, okay, thank you.
No problem.
That's all.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Ms. Venman?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. Board, 9.1, financial statements and investment schedule. Are there any questions on this item? These items? Okay.
No, I'm good.
All right, 9.2. We have Raphael, Mr. Obafemi this evening, who's going to give a operations project update.
So there are some capital projects that the district is doing right now.
You may have to speak into your mic so Jan can hear you.
Thank you. There are some capital projects that the district is working on right now in partnership with the district architect, Kluger. So the one that is scheduled for approval tonight is the rooftop unit at Plank Junior High. And I think at the last meeting, we spoke about that to the board. And I also remember at that time, there was some complication from the lowest bidder where they had some current work they're doing for the district, which is still now complete. So the firm actually requested to meet with us, and they have been threatening some legal actions. We met with them, and I think after the meeting, everyone walked away feeling good. So we are recommending, as we did prior, to have the work given to the second lowest qualified bidder because of the ability to be able to complete the work on time. And in this particular case, completing the work is very sensitive. The project will start in the summer, and we need to have it completed by August 8th. So there are a couple of other projects that are in the design phase. One has to do with the health and life safety in high school, which are required by state statute, school code. And the other things such as the OE roof replacement, including the skylight, that we're working with the architect to get done. Fox Chase Elementary School roof replacement, Benansic Junior High roof replacement. Just to mention why we're doing a lot of roof replacement, most of our buildings that we're looking at right now were built around the same time, 2008, 2009, which is about 20 years old. This is the time that the roofs they get beat up by the weather that we have here. And then we have a few other projects that are under construction that are listed here. Any questions?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Obafemi. Next up, we have our school maintenance project grant.
This is a grant that the Illinois State Board of Education actually gives out every year. And it allocates $50,000, up to $50,000 per school district. And essentially, all we have to do is just apply for it and be able to match up the $50,000 with a project that we have teed up already, and we get the $50,000. And this is every year. So what we're doing this year is, since we're doing the rooftop unit already, that is ready to go, it will help us reduce the cost of that by $50,000. Plus, we're going to spend about $3.8 million, so it will just reduce the cost by $50,000. That's what this is. In order for the application to go in, we need approval and a signature from the board.
Can you share what's the history on application for the school maintenance grant?
As far as I know, it's been around for years now.
And the district has applied for it and received it typically every year at this time?
That I don't know.
Okay.
That I don't know. I know we're applying for it this year, and in other district we have worked, we've always applied for it. It's never been turned down.
Great.
So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, board? Okay, board. Next, Stewart Farm Lease. This was on last month for information, and we have Amanda Sitar here for any questions you may have for this lease. All right, thank you for being here. Next, we have before us, coming for information, Mr. Obafemi. I was going to discuss the budget calendar resolution to designate the preparer of the tentative budget.
Based on the Illinois School Code, a school district is supposed to designate an employee to prepare the budget for the upcoming school year, which will be the FY25 budget. And ordinarily, that will be the role of the CFO. And what we're asking for is a resolution to be approved, asking me to prepare the budget for FY25. And in addition to that, we've also attached a calendar of the budget. We actually starting the budget right now after the resolution has been passed. We were starting with conversation about enrollment projection, about capacity, and to start the first step of the budget. And based on the calendar that we shared with you, we hope to have the budget ready to be approved by June instead of waiting till September.
This is for FY25.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any questions?
So there's one thing that I will bring up, and I understand we brought you on kind of late in the process for this fiscal year, so I get it. But one of the things that, and I don't think it's just our district, I think it's a lot of districts, and I'll admit it annoys me. But I've seen, like, this is a very standard calendar, so it's not aimed at you personally, right? But one of the things that I think that I have a problem with when it comes to how school districts do their budget, as far as transparency, right, is that, you know, when, and I understand, I've been told this a million times, this is really the way this is done, but me personally, when I'm looking at a budget, I get the tentative budget, but then when it comes to the tax levy, I really feel like for transparency purposes, we should see the effect of that on the budget in a 5-year projection. And we've done it before in the past, and I think it's definitely a way to show that we're being transparent, because we're saying, hey, listen, if we don't increase the levy, here's what it's going to look like over 5 years. If we don't get EBF, here's what it's going to look like over 5 years. If we get both, this is what it's going to look like over 5 years. So that when we are voting on this, we not only do we understand the implications, but so does the community. Because, you know, anytime we vote on any of these things, the community is going to say, why'd you do this? And do you have I mean, you don't have to answer this, fellow board members, but do you have an answer, right? I mean, of course I have a vague answer. It's going to hurt. I have a historical answer. I know what it's done in the past. I get all those things. But we have to appreciate the history of our district, and the history of our district demands this at this point. And so I get it. Like, I think you came in what, September?
Yes.
Right. So I understand, right? But I will be honest that I can't, in good faith, next year, if we don't have this for fiscal year 25 in place, I can't sit here and say yes to a levy because I don't have all the information. And I understand who's saying that, and I understand it's me. But I do think we owe it to be transparent and show that, because it's an opportunity to educate. Hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I can speak to that very quickly.
Yeah.
So in looking at this year's budget and comparing it to what is projected for FY25, rough numbers, I'm getting ready to talk about the levy in a few minutes. The property taxes actually makes up 58% of the revenue that the district uses to run the district.
Property taxes are 58%.
58% of the revenue. So that's number one. Number two, if we decide to levy the same amount that we levy, the 22 levy, if we decide to use the same 22 levy for FY25 without increasing it, we stand to lose about $7.5 million in just that 1 year. And that will put us from being in a surplus to a deficit, a substantial deficit of close to $7 million. That's how important the levy is. And so as it relates to the EBF, if EBF makes up about 36% of the revenue that we use to run the district. So if we were just to assume that the amount that we got this fiscal year, FY24, we didn't get any more from that, the impact of that will be between $4 million to $9 million on the bottom line of the district, just on the EBF. And that will create a substantial financial hardship to the district. So these two sources of funding are very significant. So if you add them all up, it's really about 9% of the revenue that we need to run the district.
And that doesn't sound too far off from what we've been told in the past, which I think in the past we were told like about a $20 million deficit. We basically have to cut $20 million off if we didn't have those things. So I'm fine with that. I appreciate that. I just think though that at some point, like we need to see it so that the public can see it, and I want to make sure that we're being transparent. Those numbers don't surprise me. They scare the hell out of me. I'm not gonna lie to you.
They scare me too.
Okay, but they don't surprise me.
Yeah.
How much more detail when you describe
Yeah,
you need to see it? I'm trying to understand.
It's exactly what we were shown last year.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's part of the standardized budget that we submit, or if that's a separate documentation.
I think it's a separate
supporting
request.
documentation.
It's not what we would.
Because we're not budgeting for 5 years either. We're budgeting for a year, and so
Yeah, but it has a compounding effect.
Yeah, but I guess I don't want to.
It's a related request, I think. I don't think it's a necessarily pertinent.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm just trying to.
Over your budgeting.
That's helpful.
I think because I would say this, Dominic. Right, we're going to vote on whether to raise the levy or not. Right? Why? Now, based off of that, but where's the visual to show the people at home that?
I don't have a problem with.
Because this is
Yeah, I don't have a problem with
exactly where
getting
we were in the past when boards did not levy, and then it's a compounding effect, but they didn't realize necessarily that their action, what it would do. And so now we know what it looks like. We've done it. We've established a practice where we look at the budget with whatever levy options we have in front of us.
Right, and to the point, I think we need to, whether we want to admit it or not, this is my opinion though, we need to have.
I think there's just a difference in naming of it. I don't know if it's budget.
No, So we're gonna
Is
we're gonna
what I'm
vote to increase the levy, right? But without that information, we don't really know the effect. We don't have it. We know the effect, but it's not there. It's not transparent. So I just don't agree with the
I fully
process.
support providing that information.
Right.
Okay.
My
So
point
that's-
is, it should happen before that, before we say, yes, increase the levy. Because we want to be able to tell the public, hey, listen, this is why. This is why we're doing what we're doing.
The next time it comes around.
Yeah, I hope that was, yeah. But I appreciate that
Well, 'cause-
information
the
because
budget was
that is
next
definitely
year,
helpful.
So I'm trying, so, okay.
Well,
We'll
but
figure it out.
for fiscal year '24, still, we didn't, never mind.
I think
Yeah,
we
I
did
think
a-
we'll figure it out.
I think we did a really good job last year.
I agree with-
Of communicating to our community.
That's my
why
point.
we were doing what we were doing, and we did have some visual aids to help us with that.
It was very, I will tell you, I had definite conversations with community members who thanked us for doing it and said that it was very helpful with the conversations they were having with people in the community who didn't understand.
Okay, thank you.
So one thing, thank you for that. We will get that teed up for next time.
Thank you.
One thing I would like to point out in the budget schedule is that we have 3 sessions, of community engagement session in the timeline where we are hoping to have budget presentations at different part of the village. And so where we will present the proposed budget for FY25, we'll give folks opportunity to ask questions, to provide input before the budget is finalized. So if you look at, and those are tentatively scheduled for May, you see 2 days in May, and also 1 day in June before the board is, the budget is approved. And we would love to have board members with us when we're doing those committee engagement for the budget.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Obafemi, can you discuss a little bit about how the demographer's reports, I know we're scheduled to meet with the demographer in the next couple of weeks. How will that play a role in both this year's levy and next year's levy?
Probably next year.
Next year's, more importantly.
The demographer?
Yes, in terms of thinking about the growth that we're seeing in
Right,
the area.
right.
And also other potential.
In having conversation with the folks in the village of Oswego, there are a number of big projects that are getting ready to start that have just been approved. One project is an 800 combination of different housing, apartment, townhouses, as well as standalone single-family homes that are being contemplated to be built. And of course, that's going to impact our enrollment. So one of the things that we're doing is we're looking at the enrollment data, projected demographic data that we're going to use to try to prepare for the future and see what that looks like, so we don't get stuck flat-footed without anticipating this.
Yeah.
And see, that's another piece where I think there's some opportunity, going back to the legislative committee, I think there's some opportunity to have conversations with Oswego, 9th Ward of Aurora, probably a couple townships, maybe even the county. We know, like, for instance, Route 30 is not a priority over the next 5 years to expand between 34 and, I don't know, 59, basically, right? Nor is it a priority from Orchard Road to Route 47, which could potentially, bring in, Canelan and Yorkville school districts, so they have those interests as well. And I'm not opposed to growth because I'm a realist, right? However, the infrastructure has to somewhat keep up, and so I think there's an opportunity there to have those conversations when we're talking about growth and what our infrastructure currently looks like.
And there's no plans, well, I know that the cricket stadium still has a long way to go in terms of from here to, making it happen, but I would imagine that there should be some discussions of expansion on Route 30 being
that's
down
like-
that way. I
When
know
they're
it-
talking about large events, they're talking like 1 or 2 a year. So I don't know if that'll play into that type of discussion, but they definitely have to do some figuring out how they would support that. yeah, as far as parking and stuff, so,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, that's a different, yeah.
I think those things might apply, but for me, I'm looking at it from a school scenario, and like, for instance, you know, right across the street from Route 30 that's Canelan School District, not that far from Yorkville, and so if that all builds up, it will have an impact on us as well. It'll have an impact on, you know, traveling through our community, trying to get our students to where they need to be on time. So I think there's some opportunities with some of those other school districts. I think there's an opportunity to talk to, you know, see what we can do with our state reps. I understand how Illinois Department of Transportation has these various districts, and Route 30 is right there on the corner, so maybe it's not a priority for that district, but, you know, it's going to be a priority for us.
Mr. Obafemi?
Yes, sir.
2023 tax levy adoption cycle.
So one of the most important thing, someone in my role, as well as the board does in the school district, is the property tax levy. As I mentioned just a little bit ago, the contribution of the property tax levy, based on the way funding of education is structured in the state of Illinois, is significant. And it varies in some school districts from 80% all the way to about 60%, which is where we are. And so in order for that to happen, the prescribed way process that a district has to go through based on the Illinois School Code. And one of those that are very, very particular, very prescriptive, is the cycle that you have to go through. So the first step today is where the board actually has to adopt a resolution. And then the next step is the truth in taxation. Notice that it has to be published in a local newspaper of circulation in the district. Then the next thing is, and the 21st, the publication has to happen no more than 20 days before the public hearing, and no less than 7 days. So you have to follow it to a T. And then after that will be the December 4th public hearing, Truth in Taxation, where the board votes to adopt the 2023 levy. And then after that has been adopted, the levies has to be filed with the 3 counties where we actually levy property taxes, which in this case is Kane, Kendall, and Will County, clerk's office, which is normally the last Tuesday in December. Then I just want to go through some key terms here. A levy is really a request. I know sometimes it gets confused, what is a levy, what is an extension? A levy is actually an ask. We ask based on what we need in the budget, we prepare the levy. But that's not really what the county clerk actually extends. So the bill that the county clerk actually sends out is called an extension. And I always like to point out to people, when folks see the levy and they feel like, oh, this is how much the district is going to get. The district never, ever gets what is levy, because the timing of the levy is such that there are so many unknowns that are still taking place in the process. For example, people are still appealing the assessment as we speak. So the final number is not known. But by statute, we have to prepare the levy right now, even though we don't have all the information. So the levy is what we request. The extension is actually what the county clerk sends out in form of the tax bill. One of the critical factors in determining what the levy is the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. And back in 1991, the legislature passed a law, PTEL, which is commonly referred to as tax cap. And that took effect in 1994 in the color counties. And what that law requires is that the increase in property taxes is limited to CPI or 5%, whichever one is lower. So if CPI is 1.4%, and that's all we get. And there have been years where CPI has been, I remember a few years ago, was just 1 basis point. There have been years when it was eight basis point. There have been years when it's 7 basis point. So that's what we're limited to. Another important factor is EAV. What essentially EAV is, equalized assessment value, is the value of all taxable property in a community. That's what that is. So I think those are important terms that we need to keep in mind when we're talking about the levy. So I think these were some of the things I just went through. So once the levy is adopted, as I mentioned earlier, it has to be filed with the county clerk's office. So I wanted to show the importance of property taxes in our revenue. As I mentioned earlier, what you see there, property taxes by far the largest source of revenue in the district. In the current year budget is 58.1%, followed closely by state funding, which is made up in large part by the evidence-based funding, which is another 600-pound gorilla. So the property taxes are like a 1,000-pound gorilla. The EBF is a 600-pound gorilla. And everything else kind of falls in place. Even with ESSER and all that, federal funding is very limited compared to property taxes and state funding.
Is there a space for private grants when we think about the future?
Absolutely, that
claims?
would be others.
Okay. Great. And is there no category for others currently?
No.
Okay.
We don't get a significant enough amount of money.
The private grants can just, you know,
Is that
be a
slither?
third, right?
It's a slither. That's what we're looking for.
You
So,
It's not going to be, I don't have those skills.
so something else that I think is important that I try to point out about the levy, the whole property tax process is very arcane. And it gets a little confusing, but I think it's important enough since it makes up a big chunk of our revenue that we, as well as folks in the community, try to understand that. So the levy is actually made up of the budget is made up of 2 different levies. The way the levy works is, this levy that we're talking about, the 2023 levy, that is going to be approved next month, we will get the first installment in the spring. So if you look at the first installment that we get in the spring, it's actually fiscal year 24, right? And since all the moving parts are not completed, the appeals are not completed yet, the assessment is not finalized yet. So what the treasurer does is, it looks like the treasurer looks at the completed levy of last year, and they say, we have a completed levy of 2022, and we will pay you 55% of the completed levy from last year. That's what we get as the first installment in the spring. And then once everything else is complete as far as the assessment, the second part, which is 45%, we actually get that in the fall, after everything is completed. The one that we get in the fall is actually the actual amount that we get from this levy. So they'll take the difference out. So the first installment is fiscal year 24. The second installment is fiscal year 25. I always want people to know that is very important to know. We don't get the levy all in one fiscal year. It crosses 2 fiscal years. So it impacts 2 different fiscal year budgets.
I know, I didn't know that.
That makes sense. Because July 1.
So CPI, when we talk about the levy, is really, really a major driving factor of how much money we got. I will say, if folks who've looked at our financial condition and things look a little better, and the reason for that is that we've had 2 years of 5% CPI. So that was why we were able to go from being deficit spending to where now we have a more balanced budget and a little bit of surplus. So CPI is really, this is what makes up CPI. It's a basket of important spends that actually drive the economy. One of the largest factors that drives the CPI, consumer price index, is housing, apparel, food, beverages, travel. And what I would like to point out, though, is with CPI, even though we use CPI for the year, but the one that actually impacts the levy is just 1 month, December CPI. So I've been around long enough where we've seen CPI go up all throughout the year, and December comes around, and that 1 month that we need for CPI to be is low. And that's what we're stuck with, using to calculate the levy. So I wanted to go back and just show you what some of the things I just mentioned as far as the 10-year historical data for CPI. I remember back in this year's here where CPIs were low. 2014 was especially challenging. We got 80 basis points. That's all we got. We didn't even get 1%. 70 basis points. So that had significant negative impact on CPI, on the levy. So I wanted to point out 2021 and 2022. The actual CPI was 7% in 21, 6.5% in 22. But if you remember what I said, we are limited to 5%. Even though the cost of everything else that we spend money on, for the most part, was driven by those actual CPI, but we can't capture all that in our levy. So this is what our tax levy is that we are proposing for 2023.
Do you have to give it broken down by, like that, or is that?
Yes.
Or was that,
Yes.
okay, okay.
Yes. And education is the broadest fund. We have the flexibility to use education for just about anything in the district.
So do you overestimate CPI in that, or ask for more or less, or not?
I'm going
less?
to talk about that.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about
Good question. Coming up.
Mr. Gateway, you're still in my thunder. So, yeah, and then followed by O&M. That's the funds that we use to take care of our buildings. And also to pay our colleagues who are custodian and maintenance folks. Transportation is what we use to actually fund the transporting of our kids back and forth. I wanted to point out that the last few years, the last couple of years, the cost of transportation is very challenging for the district. In the last couple of years, what we've actually levied around $2.5 million for transportation. But the cost of transportation is actually substantially higher than that. So we've had deficit in the transportation fund. So what I've tried to do is address that in my levy strategy. So instead of levying more in education, I actually took $5 million that we would have levied in education and decided to levy that in transportation to try to close the deficit that we have in transportation. And the goal is that as we operate the transportation department, we are more efficient with the way we run transportation, and we can start taking care of that deficit in transportation. And special education is 10.5. IMRF is the pension fund for non-licensed employees. That's what we use to pay for the district's pension contribution. I think everybody knows what Social Security is. Social Security and FICA that we pay to the federal government, and then we levy a small amount of working cash. So this is what you call the operational levy, which is everything less the debt service.
We had a question on that last slide,
Sure.
Rafael. Dr. Murillo.
I want to summarize what I think I understand, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, or if I'm right, or if I'm wrong. My understanding, looking at the different, because I noticed on a future slide, we can see the percent increase in transportation is very high. Isn't it my understanding that we can levy a total percentage amount, like an increase, and that is limited, but how we divide that increase among these funds is our prerogative?
Yes. It's kind of like you got $20.
Yeah, how are you going to divide it?
So you can decide you can get 10-10, you can get 5 5s, you can get 5s, a 10, and singles. At the end of the day, you get no more than $20. It's just a combination of how you
Does
make
the
that.
way we submit our levy for these individual funds, like our prerogative, does that ever impact the way they respond or the amount that they give?
No.
Okay.
No. Those are excellent questions. I'm glad you're listening.
I'm trying really hard to learn everything.
Well, then you can move money within funds, so I mean, it's.
Okay, that's a good
You
question
just gotta
too.
document, you know,
Yeah.
there's different things.
And put it back.
Yeah.
So the other significant levy that I want to point out is bond and interest. So this is tied to debt. So when we issue bonds, we provide that information to the county clerk. So the treasurer automatically levies that to pay the bondholders to make them whole. So the levy amount for bond and interest is actually set in the debt book. So when we issue bonds, we figure out how much it will cost to make the bondholders whole. And the amount is set, and that's what this is. From the time we issue the bonds up till the bonds are retired.
I always gotta say this is, I just did the calculation, that's 22.42% of the tax bill, basically, that's coming from the district, so.
And yeah, and I know the answer, but I'll ask this question: when they receive their tax bill, will they see how much goes to debt and how much goes to operation, or no?
No.
Yeah, and see, I think that's always the piece that's, to your point, Dominic, that's always the piece is like, I listen, I understand people's frustrations. It's not like anyone goes home saying, wow, I'd love to pay some taxes today. But, you know, one of the things that I know I come across all the time is, well, why are they so high for compared or this, that, and the other? And it's like, well, to your point, Dominic, don't forget the $36 million mortgage that we're paying every year on the buildings that we didn't have any money to build, so we had to borrow.
Yeah, we issued bond back in 2006, as you mentioned, when the town was booming. And we've been paying those bonds. But we've made a significant contribution to the reduction, though, because we started out at over 400 million, and now we're down to the low 300s. So we've made a significant reduction here.
Well, you'd hope, right?
Yeah, giving them a haircut. So what I wanted to show, I wanted to compare with the extension. Remember, the extension is the actual amount that we got. The levy is just the ask, which is what I was explaining before. So I wanted to compare the extension from last year to the levy this year. And if you look at it, for the most part, it's pretty much 9.58. It's what we're asking for. We're not going to get that. We're capped at 5%. But I also pointed out earlier about the levy strategy that we used. Last year, we only levied $2.4 million in transportation, but we spent substantially more than that. So we had a huge deficit in transportation. And it's actually happened the last couple of years. So what I've decided to do is to start plugging that hole in that transportation by reducing the amount that we levy in education and put that into transportation. But that is only a temporary solution. The long-term solution is we have to come up with a different way of operating transportation. We have to be more efficient. We have to do better routing. Those are the things that we need to do. Because this is a short-term solution, we cannot continue to fund this at this rate.
Are special ed claims a part of that, for example, for
Yes.
transportation? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Special ed claim, are we talking about Medicaid or are we talking about? I mean,
for collections, and are we collecting all we can?
We're not collecting all we can. There are three basic sources of trying to get reimbursement for transportation. One is regular air transportation, where the state has never paid 100% of that. And if we're lucky, we'll get 25 to 30% in general ed transportation. For special ed transportation, we get about 80%, which is better. But then there's also an opportunity for us to do Medicaid claim. And Medicaid claim is made up of three basic sources. And one is administrative services, another one is fee for service, and the third one is transportation claim. To be eligible for Medicaid, the students who receive the services, they have to be Medicaid eligible, they have to have an IEP that calls for them to receive those services. And when they receive those services, we get a percentage of the salary of those folks who provide the services. And then we also get the services, a percentage of the services that the clinician provide. Those are the fee for service. And the third component that was introduced about 3-4 years ago is the transportation one, whereby if a student is eligible for Medicaid, student has transportation written in the IEP, and the student actually got services that day and they rode the bus back and forth. We can claim a percentage of that as Medicaid reimbursement. What we found out is that we have not been as diligent in filing those claims. And that's one of the things that we will be looking at, trying to make sure that we maximize the amount of claims that we can get. The other part of it is McKinney-Vento transportation, where we are transporting kids who are not who don't live in the district. They belong to other school districts. Those districts are supposed to pay a percentage of their transportation cost. We are going to be more diligent in making sure that we recoup some of those funds too for transportation.
I'd like to. Ooh.
Yeah, sorry. It was my understanding that we received a significant amount of reimbursement for transportation that we're doing. What don't I understand about that deficit?
The cost of transportation, the state doesn't give us one for one. That's the problem. For regular transportation, they don't reimburse us one for one. So we spend more money than we get back from the state. They do better with special ed transportation. We get about 80%, is very typical. But we do not, no, we don't get all the money that we spend on transportation from the state.
And even if we were to be recouping in the different areas that we have been neglecting.
Yes, I think what we have to do is just be more efficient in the way we run transportation.
Do you know
the way we do
percentage?
routing and things like that?
If it's not 1-to-1, do you know the percentage? This is just from my own knowledge, because I'm like trying to remember. I'll look at some notes from one.
I can go back. I can actually go back and provide you the last 5 years reimbursement rate.
I think what you're asking for is overall and reimbursement.
Overall reimbursement, just whatever the percentage. I understand it may not be 1-to-1, but I was thinking it was like 80%.
No, that's special ed. Special ed, you get 80% for special education.
Yeah, I was
not
under the
regular
impression it was like
transportation.
70.
Yeah. What about EL? Is EL different, or that's same? Sorry, same reimbursement rate as general ed?
Same.
Okay.
Same. Special ed is where you get the most money.
So out of all the categories, special ed is what percentage of the total?
It's where the state reimburse you the most.
Right, but, okay.
Well, I think just
No, I
if
get that
the number of students is a decent percent, but then it's also probably more costly.
Yeah. I think we could do a better job
Yeah.
with the way we run special education, and we are going to focus on doing that.
Can you, just because you said that we're transporting students that aren't really our students and they're not, can you expand on that a little bit to explain that to people? So anybody in the public.
One of the programs that we have is called McKinney-Vento. It's mandated by the federal government, and it's for homeless students. So if a student went to school here last year, and somehow they lost their place to stay here, they're still entitled to attend school here until they find another place somewhere else, right? So while they're attending school here, wherever they are, we have to transport them, right? But after the time, there's a time limit as to when we can do that. So wherever they are living, the district is supposed to pay a percentage, contribute a percentage towards their transportation.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that for the public.
So so when you prepare levy, there's so many unknown that you don't know. You don't know, the assessment is not complete. And the biggest unknown too, the EAV is also estimated. It's not finalized yet. But the biggest unknown are new construction. There's nowhere where you have the absolute right number for new construction, right? Because the assessment is done before new constructions are finalized, but you're entitled to levy that. But since you don't know what the actual number is, if you do not balloon and get as close to the projection of the new construction, you lose the ability to collect that money forever. So what you do is you make the best estimate that you can, use data from the different county, and then you also use economic data to see what new constructions are. And then you do what is called balloon levy, so that you can capture as much of the money that the district is eligible to as possible. So, and that's what we're attempting to do here with 9.5, 8 increase. We're not going to get there. we're limited by PTEL. But what we're trying to do is the unknown of new property, we're trying to make sure that we're able to capture that.
Light bulb just went off. Okay, you keep going, but I think I get, because I didn't realize, I didn't realize that, I understood that we were capped at 5%, and I understood that we should ask for more, but I didn't necessarily understand the data point. And I kept asking, I know y'all keep seeing me whisper to Dr. Kilgotti, I've been asking him about the demographics because of all the building that's happening on 34, on Wolf's. And so you're saying that even though we're capped at 5%, we're asking for 9.58 based on the construction because of the projections, because whatever that number is, if a year from now it came in at 9.58 because of that, but if we only asked for 5, we could never go back and recoup that, the delta between the two.
That's lost forever. And the other thing is the cap, the PTEL doesn't apply to new construction because you don't know the value of it. So the PTEL only applies to existing property that have been valued. But new construction, since you don't know what the value of new construction is, the PTEL doesn't apply to it.
What's that, Eugene?
I don't understand why the calculation is done that way. I mean, I'm trying to make sense why the calculation. I understand the cap of 5%, but I don't understand why I would be penalized for something I don't even know.
That's the game of property tax.
Are you talking about for new construction?
Yeah.
Look, it's going to get assessed, and then there's going to be some amount.
I agree, but my point is why would I get then penalized because of something that I don't know that you're going to later assess to give me a true value for?
Well, yeah, I don't know if we're not, yeah, I'm trying to think. So if it was if you have two $300,000 houses, I don't know if it would be 9.858% more because you're in the one that was just built.
It's going to be the value of those property, less the exemptions,
right? Yeah.
Less the equalizer factor that comes from Illinois Department of Revenue. So it's a lot of things that, and also the tax rate. So it's a lot of things that goes into that. So it's not one for one, but you want to make sure that you capture as much of the value of the new construction as possible. That's why you do what is called balloon levy.
I don't quite.
Because you don't ask for it. So if you don't know to ask for it, then
it's done. You're done.
I would like to take this time to put in a nice friendly plug for the fact that here we go, right? Local civics, local economics, and we don't have it in our state curriculum, do we? No, we don't. Now, I'm not asking state of Illinois for another mandate, but I do want to just point out, right?
So I wanted to point out the same question that comes up, and it comes up everywhere. Why do we want to levy to the cap?
Why do we what?
Want to levy to the cap.
Oh.
And I try to come up with the reasons why. Because we have 80% of our expenditures tied in with people. Our educators, they live in the real world. As I mentioned earlier, inflation the last couple of years has been averaging about 7%. The cars that they buy is driven by the real life inflation. The utilities that we pay for, driven by inflation. Everything that the district buys is driven by inflation. And the services, everything is driven by inflation. The other critical part of that is our facilities. As I mentioned earlier, the majority of our buildings are about 20 years old now. This is the time where they need a lot of TLC. Carpets need to be replaced. Rooftop units need to be replaced. Windows need to be replaced. Skylights need to be replaced. And the only place where we get that money is from the levy, because it makes up close to 70% of our revenue. We can't get it from anywhere else. So in order for us to make sure our buildings are in decent shapes, we need to levy to get the money to be able to do that.
And I would add, maybe it covers all of this, which is that we have, in the past, in the name of saving money here, right? Because again, nobody but he goes home and says, hey, can I pay more taxes? I get it. But in the name of saving money here, because we don't have a rainy day rainy day fund, right? Very different. Because we have taken shortcuts when it comes to maintenance on our buildings, it's cost us more money. But it's cost us more money because we deprived ourselves of those revenues in the sake of saving money. It's not fun, but you know, it's not that far from making money. People who like to talk about the private sector. In the private sector, are you going to make money if you never invest? The answer is no, right? If you don't invest in something, then I don't. I agree. You have to. I mean, you have to invest, or it's not going to work, right? I mean, so I don't know. It's not fun. I get it, but for the name or the sake of saving money, we're actually hurting ourselves.
Right.
And a lot of turnover.
Right. The other part that I put in there, to your very good point you just made, is reserves. Over the last few years, we've done what I will call a payday loan, which is a tax anticipation warrant, where we need money, we need to borrow money for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, just to tie us over. And those debts have actually been bought by neighboring districts.
Yes, they have Plainfield.
And in a month, they make a quick 50 grand off of us. Now, if you think about it, the cost of a teacher, the yearly cost of a teacher in the district is $70,000. So for $20,000 a month, we can have an additional teacher for what we're paying in what I call a payday loan. So we do that by making sure that we levy to the cap. We put some money in reserves, so when it rains, we have an umbrella to cover us. We wouldn't have to go out and borrow one at an exorbitant rate.
Yeah, I always ask this question to some people is like, imagine that someone in Plainfield School District comes and knocks on your door and says, yeah, $10, please, right? Like, you're going to be like, well, for what? I got my own students and whatever. But that's literally what we're doing is we're giving money to Plainfield School District. That's hard to swallow.
So the one thing I also want to cover, even though we only have one TIF district in the district, is the tax increment finance. I think this is important for us all to know. And what it is, an economic development tool that municipalities use to make sure there are certain areas that have been difficult to develop, are the resources for them to be developed. For example, I know in downtown Oswego, there's a designated TIF area. And if you've ever been to downtown, if you've ever been to 113 Main, it's a TIF district. The apartment right across the street from it is a TIF district. What it is if a municipality looks at an area and they say that area is not being able to get developed, despite all the effort to get it to be developed. So what they would do then, they'll declare that area a TIF district. And what that means is whatever property taxes that were being generated from that is frozen for the life of that TIF. We still continue to get those property taxes, but any additional growth in property taxes that will result because of the economic development from the TIF zone, that money then goes to make sure that area develops. What will ordinarily happen, the municipality will issue a bond, and those proceeds from what you call increment, the growth in that area goes to pay off that bond. And at the end of the TIF period, what will happen, that property will go back on the tax roll. And if it's done well and the value of the property goes up, all the taxing district benefits from it. So if TIF is done well, it's very beneficial.
Yeah, this is another one of those points where I think we're getting $20,000 a year for where those apartment buildings are standing up. In 20 years, it'll be, what, millions? So it's a pretty good investment, for the district. It was either, so we're going to keep getting the 20 grand we were getting before until we get the millions.
This is education for me. Who determines a TIF district? Who says this is a TIF district?
So this is how it works. The municipality establishes a TIF district.
Okay.
And whether they do it well, which most municipalities would do, is an area that they've tried everything to get developed. It just would not develop. And so that area needs investment. And so they establish a TIF district. But in order for it to be established properly, all the taxing bodies have to go vote for it. So it would be us, it would be the community colleges, the county, all the taxing bodies have to vote for in order for it to be TIFed. Even if they voted it down, the municipality, based on the law, on the books by the state of Illinois, the municipality can still go ahead and establish a TIF district. But a good TIF established by a municipality, you want cooperation from all the taxing bodies.
Okay. And did I hear you correctly that there's only one in our district right now?
As far as I know, the one downtown where 113 Main is a TIF district.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and oh, sorry, go ahead, Jen.
Go ahead, Jen.
Go ahead. That's all I was going to say was downtown.
Yeah, and this is, again, just to reiterate, because I think it's all connected, this is a reason why it's good to have good relationships between us and in this case, the Village of Oswego. So when it's constructive and positive and there's a back and forth, then that's good for everybody,
Yeah.
right? So.
Because from my understanding, that used to be where the village hall was, where 113 Main is, and it was abandoned for years. Now we have a thriving restaurant there that everybody can go and eat. It provides economic result for the community. Folks there, when they eat, they pay taxes, people have jobs, and the value of their property's gone up.
Is the duration of a TIF voted on? Like, or is it, this example is 23 years?
Traditionally, it's 23 years.
Traditionally, it's that.
That's the longest it can be.
Okay.
But there are cases where it can be as short as 5 years,
Yeah.
Okay.
10 years, 15 years, 12 years.
Okay.
But you need time for the bonds to be paid back and to see increments in the value of the area.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, you were here when we voted on that over by Caterpillar?
The Montgomery abatement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were here, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that's similar to, is that like a TIF or no?
That's more of an abatement,
Okay.
which is it's actually different than that's a similar thing. It's an economic development tool, incentive for a company to locate in an area that needs growth.
Thank you.
So the recommendation of the administration is to accept and approve the 2023 tentative tax levy as presented and authorize the tax levy public hearing to be held on December 4, 2023. Thank you. Any additional questions?
Well, that was really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Rafael. Dr. Kincaid, we have this evening ISB state waiver request, full day school improvement days. Did I skip number 9.7?
9.7,
yeah.
Mr. Obafemi,
One more.
we appreciate your thoroughness.
You're the next contestant.
Okay. So this is part of the property tax process. So every year, as I mentioned earlier, the assessment is still going on, the assessment process. If one's property is assessed by the township assessor, the person has the ability to protest the assessment. And if they want to protest, they can protest it to the township assessor. If the township assessor disagree, then they can protest it to the Board of Review. And the process of protesting that to the Board of Review, which is called Property Tax Appeal Board, is that's the process of protesting the assessment. Now, what we normally would do is we don't intervene and try to stop that appeal. We only intervene if the value is $100,000 or more. If the appeal is $100,000 or more, because that's significant. And those that tend to be major businesses who would do the appeal like that, because a regular person wouldn't say, I want $100,000 reduction in the value of my property. And when that happens, what we do, we ask an attorney to intervene on our behalf. In this case, an attorney that specializes in property tax appeal. They can do a PTAB between the Board of Review, or they can go to the circuit court if they don't like the decision that was made by the Board of Review. So the resolution that we're putting before the board is to appoint the WIT Law Office to appear on behalf of the district for appeals of $100,000 or more before the PTAB board. And we need to specify the name of the person, of the firm representing the district, because the board, when the attorney makes an appearance before the board will ask for a resolution authorizing them to appear on behalf of the district. And it has to include the name of the firm who is making the appearance on behalf of the district.
Help me out with a few things, because there are certain narratives out there about this. So one, I think you've alluded to this already. They tend to be larger companies because they can spend the money, right? And they'll get something back, right? Second, I guess, is, can you speak to us about how successful they are? Because, you know, well, I'll ask that question, and then I have one follow-up point based off your answer. How successful are, like, I don't want to name a company because, geez, I don't want anybody coming after me. But let's say it's a very large company, right? And they own a lot of land. How successful are they typically?
So it's been my experience is $100,000. We're talking about firms, not individuals. And also, it's been my experience that what happens is there's a consensus, Rich.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is the firm will go out and get an appraiser that shows, based on the appraiser or by certified appraiser, this is what they believe the value of the property is. We'll go out, we'll get an appraiser. The district will get an appraiser, and then we will meet in the middle. That's the way it normally works. It never rises to 99.9% of the time. It never rises to where we actually go to PTAB. Before the case is called, we actually reach a consensus whereby everyone wins.
So it's you would say it's very common for these very large companies that own a lot of land, probably in a lot of places, for them to successfully have reduced, maybe not $100,000,
Right.
but to have reduced their property tax. That's pretty common.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and
Yes,
see,
it is.
I think the reason why I'm asking these questions is because I don't think people fully realize that, right? You know, shop local if you can and all that stuff. And listen, I'm not trying to say that there isn't a positive for having these. There is, right? There is, right? We want those businesses here. However, we do need to understand that every time that they successfully say, you know what? How about we knock about 10 or 20 off?
Everybody
right?
else pays more.
Everybody else
That's the
pays
way-
more.
I
That's
mean,
how it works.
It doesn't go away. It's just the burden is
And wouldn't it be
borne
awesome
by-
if that was more publicized so we knew who was causing us to pay more and who wasn't? That would be great. Would love that. Just saying.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Obafemi. I want to invite Dr. Kincaid to speak to our ISB state waiver regarding the full days, SIP days. We had a question, Dr. Maria, earlier. If you want to
Start with a question. Yes. So my question is, all of our half days for SIP are now going to full days. No?
So we are looking at moving to 3 full-day SIP days and 2 half-day SIP days.
And
So it's a combination.
So in replacement of all half days?
So instead of strictly having half-days, we would move to 3 full-day SIP days and 2 half-day SIP days.
What are SIP days?
So it is throughout the calendar year. So the work that was done through negotiations with OEA had a goal of a collaboration time with teachers of twice a month. So the placement of those SIP days, and Faith can speak to this a little bit more in depth, was to make sure that we honored a combination of utilizing institute days, which are separate than school improvement days, and our after-school days.
We were just going to jump in with the acronym. SIP isn't that we're sipping things. It's school improvement planning.
And So 3 of them are going to change to full days.
Correct.
And is that a discussion every year when we decide the calendar, or is it just?
So that would be part of calendar committee work.
Okay.
But we could not even consider going or utilizing full day school improvement days without a state waiver. So that's why we have to go down this route to get a waiver to be able to utilize full day school improvement days. So in order to have that discussion in the calendar committee for that flexibility to increase our teacher collaboration time, we would like to move forward with exploring and applying for a state waiver.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh,
So,
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
so this is just information. We're beginning the process. We wanted to make sure that we concluded our negotiations. The calendar committee has not met yet. So we are going down the road to seek the state waiver. We have included the timeline for you. So today is just for information. We do need to hold a separate hearing. Our tentative date then would be our next board meeting on December 4th. It would need to be a public hearing, and then we would apply for our waiver.
One thing I'd like to just add, because I know sometimes people will, I don't know, for various reasons, they'll get upset about some of these days. And listen, multiple stakeholders will get upset about these days. But one thing to note is, you know, when we talk about test scores, we're talking about test scores compared to like maybe other nations. And some of these days are, I'm not saying they're utilized the same in some of those other systems around the world that quote unquote have higher test scores than us, but they're very common. Like these things are very common to be seen. So for what it's worth, I mean, you know, we talk about raising test scores and some of these things are necessary. So that doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement on improvement days, but I digress.
Okay.
We're moving to 10.1. Oh, yeah. 10.1, action item, bills for payment. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to authorize the payment of bills in the amount of $6,785,880.50 as presented. Real quick, I will be abstaining, and again, anytime that I see family business on here, I feel it's not appropriate for me to vote, so I just want to make sure my fellow board members understand that.
Thank you.
Ms. Venmus?
Aye.
Dr. Maria?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Floker?
Abstain.
Motion passes 6 yeses and 1 abstention. 10.2, action item, Plank Rooftop Unit RTU bid results. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the bid of MG Mechanical Contracting, Inc. of Woodstock, Illinois, in the amount of $3,494,500.
Second.
Dr. Maria?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Floker?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Venmus?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.3, estimated tax levy and truth in taxation resolution. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the Truth in Taxation Resolution as presented.
Second.
Dr. Maria?
Aye.
Ms. Venmus?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Floker?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.4, approval of personnel report. Can I have a motion, please?
I would like to make a motion to approve the personnel report by tab as discussed in closed session.
Second.
You got to call for vote.
Oh, you gonna call?
Dr. Maria,
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Ploger,
Aye.
aye,
Yeah. Aye.
Ms. Simulton,
Aye.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Ms. Venmus.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Can I have a motion to approve the personnel report by tab?
Tab one.
Tab 1.
Yeah, I'm make a motion to approve tab 1 of the personnel report as discussed and presented in closed session.
Second.
Ms. Venmus,
Aye.
Dr. Maria,
Aye.
Mr. Ploger,
Aye.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Ms. Simulton,
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson.
Aye.
Tab 1, motion passes 7-0. Can I have a motion to approve the personnel report for tab 2?
Make a motion to approve the tab 2 of the personnel report as discussed and presented in closed session.
Second.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye. I'm sorry. No.
No, that's correct.
Ms. Venmus,
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood,
Aye.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Mr. Ploger,
Aye.
Ms. Simulton,
Aye.
Dr. Maria.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1. Can I have a motion to approve personnel report tab 3?
Make a motion to approve tab 3 of the personnel report as discussed and presented in closed session.
Second.
Before we vote, I have some things I'd like to say about this. And Jen, did you have something you wanted to say before I don't want to?
No, go ahead first.
Okay. When I came to the board in 2015, we cut administration, central office by 25%. I'll be honest, at the time, I remember saying, pay attention, watch what happens, right? Make sure everybody's paying attention and keeping track if this is harming us or not. I heard from many educators that thought we were too heavy. I went around and talked to building administration, and there was kind of a we versus them. It was a very, I don't want to use the word toxic because that's, I don't like that word, but it was very contentious. It was a very contentious situation, to say the least. Over time, I have had more and more educators who have come up to me, and some of them even remember, hey, pay attention, and they've said, okay, maybe we get it a little bit. I think that it is very important for us to make sure that we address, we have done the best that we can to address our educators who are there with our students every day. I always say the first thing that's the most important is the students and the teachers. You can't do anything if you don't have students and educators in a situation for education, right? However, it doesn't mean that everything else doesn't matter at all, right? Even we matter to a degree, right? And so what we have to get past, and we've had a series of traumas in this district. And you can go back to 2015, and that was traumatic for many people. It caused trauma, right? And then we went to cuts, and that caused trauma. And then we had COVID, and that caused trauma. There's like a series of things that we've gone through together. Like it or not, we've gone through it together, right? And there's been this piece of us and them too many times. I'm going to speak frank and blunt. Sometimes it's been the board and maybe administration, us and them, right? Sometimes it's been central administration and building administration, us and them. Sometimes it's been the teachers and administration, us and them. Sometimes it's been the various bargaining units that we have in this district, us and them. And what we have to realize is that all of the players involved matter. And if you don't have cohesion, and if you don't take care of all of those levels, all of those different stakeholders, all of those different players that are involved, we will have problems. I'm hoping we've learned lessons, right? We definitely have to address our paraprofessionals, our ESPs. That has to be a priority. It's something we will demand. When we give out anything to try and make sure that we could keep the best talent that we have at our district administration office, because that's what we're trying to do now, right? We have to also make sure at the same time there is an accountability piece. And that's the job of the board. But the job of the board also is to make sure that all of those pieces are functioning and working. And if we neglect one of them, we will have problems. We will continue to have problems. It's not us or them. It's we need us. We need all of it. It's our job to figure out how to do that best. And some of these votes are tough. Some of these situations are hard and difficult. It's not always fun governing, right? But I think the fun piece actually is having a little bit of hope and figuring out how to move forward as a unit district. Unit. It's in our name. So let's be a unit district. Let's not be us and them. Let's be us. Because us is also in community unit school district. C-U-S, us. So there you go.
Well said, sir. Well said. All right, anyone else want to say anything before we take the vote?
No vote.
Okay, let's go.
I would like to actually say something. One of the reasons that I did ask to parse the vote out so that everyone understands is that I don't disagree with anything Jared said. And I think it's really important that we understand the amount of workload that is on our district administrators, our building administrators. With that said, though, part of the hard decision comes from the fact that timing is everything. And while I 100% agree with Dr. Kelgotti's recommendations, I don't agree with the time, and it's why I asked the board to parse out the votes. I still feel very strongly, and I know it's going to be addressed in the future, but we still have one more bargaining unit that we really need to make whole. And the timing on this for me is just unfortunate. So I'm voting against the timing, but certainly not against anyone, and I fully endorse the recommendations. But I think one of the hard things we have to do is we have to make sure that the timing aligns with the things that we say are important and that we prioritize equity being number one and choosing the most vulnerable versus the least vulnerable. And so I just wanted to confirm that that's what my vote is about. It's certainly not against anyone or any role or anything. So thank you.
All right, let's go.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
No.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Ms. Fenmeth?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Sharon?
Aye.
Vote passes 6-1. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Aye. I mean,
I make a motion to adjourn.
It's not even that late, you know.
second.
Would you like to second it now?
All in favor?